The CoCo Nation Show is an unscripted, live, and interactive broadcast. Anything can and will happen.
Radio Shack? Okay.
What?
The 80s called.
Welcome to the CoCo Nation, the world's first live and interactive talk show featuring the Tandy color computer and its hardware cousins.
And when we say unscripted, it really is.
Yep. Even our intros are unscripted.
Mm-hmm. Hello, everybody. Let's see. Today is episode 313.
Good enough.
Let's see who we got with us today here. Let's see. Top corner, we got Mark Overhoser, the backup streamer.
Hey, glad to be here. It was fun last week, and I'm ready to go again.
Do I make it look easy?
No. Well, yeah, you do make it look easy. It isn't. Trust me, I still messed it up.
Let's see. Next over, Exile in Paradise.
Howdy, howdy, everyone.
And Rick Euland.
Howdy, folks.
And Ron Delvaux.
Welcome, it says on my script here, to the show.
Mm-hmm. All right, I could check that one off. Okay. Next row, yours truly, the button pusher. Ken Waters is up next.
Good morning, everybody.
Sure.
And
Ken Waters.
Kevin, let's see.
Hello, everybody.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Just
Oh, yeah.
about. All right, next up, L. Curtis Boyle.
Welcome to the show, everyone.
And what's that L stand for? Love?
Love my Coco. Yep.
Yep. Okay.
All right, and let's see if we can catch Brian Weasler unawares.
Hello, all.
Hello.
Like a little last minute preparation.
All right,
Preparation
preparation C.
L.
All right. Next over, Brian Schubring.
Up.
You're
and
muted.
he's muted.
Up.
Zoom mute.
You tell
Okay,
them. I'm not
there we
telling.
go. Can we hear you now?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you.
And then we'll take a jump to the other side of the globe. Nick Marentes.
Hi, goodbye, everyone, and thanks for watching. Oh, hang on. No, I'm reading the script from the back page. I'll just spin it
You're
around.
reading it upside down again, Nick.
Welcome, everyone.
He's already in tomorrow. Let's see. And last but not least, David Ladd.
Good afternoon, everyone, and I hope you're ready for today's show. I certainly am, and sit tight. We'll have a show for you.
All right. Over in chat, we have the usual suspects. Got Ken and Mark and Kevin and J.E. Jones and 60 and Tom Eric Gunderson and 8-Bits in the Basement, Exile in Paradise, and who's Frank
Franklin Harris from Retro Rewind.
and
Davey's Retro Corner. We will be covering some of his videos today.
Oh, cool. Okay. All right. Let's see who was in there. Le Coco Stradingo.
Strangiato.
Strangiato. See it? Me and reading names.
One of those words.
One of the best reasons to show up to the show is to watch Mark's pronunciations of people's names. It's just
See
great.
if how badly I can butcher it. You know how many takes it takes to do the patron scroll?
I can imagine.
Obviously not enough.
Mark, are they going to use? Are they going to use you to help AI figure stuff out?
It's going to go the way of Hal.
Oh,
I'm sorry,
Hal.
Dave. I can't do that.
sorry.
What would the fun be if Mark gets an AI pronunciation guide here? That's one of my favorite parts of the show. because he comes up with new, different ways to say everybody's name every week. It's not even consistent. It's great. I look
Just
forward to
remember,
it.
it's Ron Deluxe.
And one of these days it's going to be Steve Batman. Oh, let's see. That's right, Tyler. Whose name will I butcher today?
You should be able to get the guy that just joined the chat there, Brian Walsh. I think you have his name down.
Yep, there we go. Brian Walsh. All righty. Can we have a show that's all cats on display? Well, yeah, all we got to do is turn this over here a little bit. There she is. The Barformatic herself.
Yeah, mine actually. Well, one of the ones I have here left just literally about a minute before I go on. So
smart.
Yeah,
smart cat.
And from here on, we pass to Brian Weasler, and that'll take us out till the end of the show.
So
that's what you think.
Actually, that's what my next question was going to be. Brian, you got anything to show us today?
I told you.
You're muted still.
Sorry, try to mute so I don't make so much noise for you guys there. I do have a few things to share if you guys dare to indulge me. If there's but first, is there anybody who else has something they were going to share that maybe might take 5 minutes or so?
Well, I was going to share something, but I think Brian visited my house and got in the garage.
Oh.
So show them, Brian, what you found.
I will mention one thing quick. Actually, you were asking me before the show if I had any updates, and I didn't think I did, but I do have one. I spent about a full week of going through an old basic game system. It's not just a game, called Dark Castle game system that came out in early 1982. And there's no documentation. There's a very small ad with a very small description of it from 80 Micro. It only appeared a couple months, disappeared. And I spent the entire week trying to figure out how the game ran. I wrote some documentation for it. I just put it up on my site late last night or early this morning. I can't remember. And got it up to the archive. Should be there within the next week or two. It's pretty ambitious. I'm actually kind of impressed of what he tried to accomplish in the 16K extended basic program. Does have some bugs, as some of his other stuff has had to. So it's not polished or anything, but I was pretty impressed with it. And you guys can check out the details if you want, or I can show you later on the show if you want.
So is it like multitasking and have a grease weasel attached to it?
No, that's hardware stuff. That's up to David Ladd. This is all software.
I see.
Okay. Let's see. I think Rick, you had something to show.
Yeah, I stumbled across this. So you might have seen these little pins for drawing PLA and ABS. I found one at Goodwill for $5.
Could you elaborate on what PLA and ABS?
Yeah, I have no idea what you're talking about either.
So 3D printing uses plastic filament, and you can use PLA, which is the easy, cheap stuff, or ABS, which is the actual acrylated butastyrene, whatever that they make cases out of.
Plastic.
Yes. So this one has the 2 speeds. For whatever reason, it can do ABS, which is kind of unusual.
So it's a little heat. It's a little heater that.
Well, it's squirting melted ABS out the end of it.
Well, so
it's like a glue gun.
The same as our model.
It's actually hot enough to melt into the ABS that like this keyboard's made out of. So all of the little nipped off bottoms, I replaced with a wad of this stuff and smashed it down with a spoon and stuck it together great.
That sounds like it's high tech.
So I don't know if I would pay list price for one of these little pin things, which is like $40. But if you can find one at Goodwill for $5 and you need to stick a cracked case
is it like a glue gun except it uses plastic?
Well, it's actually squirting ABS, so actual plastic heated and melted. And in a 3D printer, it would be very precisely done. Obviously, with a toy like this, it's kind of a scribble device.
Yeah, it sounds like a hot
manual
glue gun,
3D printer.
ABS.
You can see what they're doing, except that's really ABS. So if you push it sort of into the plastic you're repairing and then squirt the plastic, it will stick it back together.
Let me ask you a question then. Okay, could you use that to fix the door on a CM8?
Probably. The big thing about 3D printing is it's got the shears in it where it slides by and prints things. But when you've got a little pin like this, you can squirt it right into the plastic and just kind of melt,
Yeah, so you're filling in the holes where those little pegs previously got broke off.
Right, and actually squirting plastic into the old plastic and melting it together rather than trying to just stick something on top real quick.
So could you, for example, repair a CoCo case that's maybe got a little gouge out of it on the top or something like that, if you can find the right color?
Maybe so. I mean, you know, and ABS, I mean, it's nasty, but acetone will melt and soften and flush it. So there's a lot of things.
Basically, it fuses to other ABS, so it becomes one like a weld.
Right. You're actually melting into the original plastic, which is why all of these little things here are holding. I only did every other one, and I've been beating on this pretty hard, and it's holding together. So I think it's a valid repair thing. In case you were ever wondering. Cool. Now, the plastic that comes with these pins is all PLA, which is the low temperature, easy to work with stuff. But if anyone needs some ABS, I'll send them a couple feet. Yeah, cool tip. It works.
Oh, neat.
Good price at $5 for you too.
Right. Just at the Goodwill's, throwing them away. It's the kind of thing you buy your kid doesn't like it, it goes to Goodwill. So, you know.
Yeah, we don't have a Goodwill up here, so Ken and I are going to have to hit Value Village or something.
Right. So if you're a rummaging type, you could find one. Otherwise, yeah, $40. It's kind of hard to justify.
So at Value Village, they'd sell it for $39.95.
Yeah,
right.
Sale.
A nickel off.
Well, in Canadian dollars, it's actually a bit of a discount. So cool.
Okay, let's see. Alan, do you have something?
Yeah, just kind of a little bit of fun that I got into with the CoCo this week. Back in 1978, there was a basic computer games book that was published that became rather widely known and famous. One of the programs in it is a maze generator. And I always thought that was really cool. I liked generating the mazes with it, but I couldn't ever really understand how the maze generation itself worked because the code was so much spaghetti. So it's just been one of those things. I mean, it's go-tos to go-tos and no comments. But this past week, I ran across an article on the Medium website. A guy named George Castro had been fighting that same, what the heck does this code actually do and why, that I had been. And he had managed to run across an old copy or an archive of the original from 1972 that still had the comments and had a different set of logic for how the maze generated. So this week I adapted that to the CoCo family. It wasn't hard because it's all basically basic, and Microsoft Basic 3 was what was used for the basic computer games book. And before that was Dartmouth Basic and EduSystem 30. There's some stuff to mess with, but got it running on basically all of the above: MC10, Alice, CoCo's, Dragons, and threw it up on my blog. And I threw the link up in the blog channel and on the basic channel in the Discord. And it was just kind of fun to finally, after all these years, understand how the maze really worked from within the code. And so I tried to write up and show an example of that for that guy George, who was also fighting with it, and for anybody else who ever saw that and just wanted to know. So that's my CoCo project for the week.
Wow, Alan, that's a neat story. I mean, that's cool. It's being a detective.
Yeah, and the fact you found the 1972 original code, like I did see your post talking about the book from 78, which was that one of the creative computing books or a different one?
And there was it was originally published in 1973 in a creative computing magazine. And between 72, when it was originally written, and that publication in 73, someone overhauled that code a lot to get it to run on the EduSystem. And that's where all the comments got stripped, probably to save memory. Yeah. And logic got redone, probably because they were trying to save memory for not using an array to hold the directions and stuff. But man, that go to if then go to, that's some spaghetti from it's pretty fearsome.
The old spaghetti factory.
Would you say it was a novel way of doing it compared to like today's codes or whatever?
Yeah, the spaghetti version, I don't know anybody who would wish that on an enemy. The original version is rather straightforward to read, especially with the comments. But I mean, you can look at the code and go, "Oh, it's making a list of directions. Okay, now if this direction is there, then go there, and now draw the maze." It's just almost zero spaghetti in the original, but somehow, for some reason, to adapt it, it got way redone, and all the variables got renamed, but the original author was still credited.
Well, remember back in the day, you always wrote pseudocode first because real code wasn't good enough to express what you were doing. And then it was like a translation. You almost had to disassemble back to your original thought. And yeah, that's ugly.
Yeah. There was actually a discussion on the Amigos Discord because somebody was asking about, doing assembly code or just, disassembling on old 8-bit systems. And they were mentioning how much easier it'd be if you had all these comments and you had like nice, long, self-explanatory labels for variables. And I'd explain, back then when 16K was a lot of memory and, 64K cost $1,000, you cut every corner you could to get the damn thing to run. Otherwise, everybody would wrote 4K games because it'd be all comments and then 4K of actual code because that's all you could fit. So, yeah, it's timely that you brought that up because that was an exact discussion they were having.
When I first learned doing BASIC and there was REM statements, I thought to myself, I mean, it's probably the logical thing to think, but it's not true, that it wouldn't take up any memory if you put REM and then you have, because for some reason,
when I first started, I had the same thought.
Right? Okay, so I'm not crazy. All right.
Yeah, REM doesn't count. You can have all the REM you want. It doesn't count.
That's only if it's a compiled BASIC.
Right.
I wonder if that's the same algorithm that Brian Schubring is demonstrating on his screensaver. I know that one was written in C. But
yes, it is. So it's actually a very common maze generation algorithm, but the way that it was implemented in spaghetti code and some assumptions underneath it made it very opaque to try to understand. But once you actually see, yes, it's just doing a random dig and then doing the walls. That's actually a fairly well-known maze algorithm. So yeah, and you could take the version from 1978 or the original, and you could add those same functions that are going on Brian Schubring's right now, because it saves the entire maze in an array ordered by the number that it dug it out. So you could actually redraw it in different colors with semi-graphics if you wanted. I put a few ideas for things you could extend it with at the bottom of the web post, but yeah, that amazing program from the 1978 is basically what inspired that screensaver idea and how to do those kinds of maze solving and stuff like that. And it is all still possible with the code that was originally published.
That's not what's on your screen right now, is it?
No, that's a different project.
But fun fact, in our call center, the load test as we were setting it up was to run X-Maze on the pizza box on every pod cell. So you get the whole room lit up doing this.
For the people that aren't aware of your blog site there, Alan, and who aren't on the Discord, but just watching or listening to the podcast, would you be able to give the URL for your
chat
and pose in the chat? Okay, thanks.
exileandparadise.com. It's not hard. So, and yeah, the one fun thing for you, Curtis, is that I have adapted that Amaze program to be my screensaver on EOU. So at the bottom, it just starts generating another maze with the same dimensions. Then it clear screens and loops. And if you don't turn on all the speed optimizations, the maze will be up for a while it generates the next one. Then it just draws another one. And yeah, I run it with RSB. I haven't done the basic 09 version yet, but that's an idea. But but at least I wanted a screensaver for my EOU, and now I have one.
Cool.
Okay. Brian, you ready?
Which Brian?
Weezer.
Unless Brian Schubring, do you have anything new to show or?
No, nope, nothing new. The only thing I'm working on is rebuilding my
unpacking your boxes
player.
That looks like a screensaver right there.
It is. This was one that I got that was originally just black and white, and I dug into it and I DED'd a couple spots and made some pretty colors.
It's fast.
Yep. OS9 or nitrous.
Yep. Now enough plugging my projects.
Oh, the check cleared. I thought I'd do it.
Mr. Weasler, what do you have to show us today?
Oh, I got a few things here. One is kind of just a little bit of a spin-off from last week. Let's do this here. There we are. So last week I was kind of showing some Burke and Burke. This is I was looking for something else and I came across that. I remember I had this here. This is a ZClock that he put out. It was I believe this is just an OS9 based application. Is that the right word? Am I using the right word or app?
Yeah, it's almost
plugin?
like a TSR. It kind of runs in the, if it's what I'm thinking of, it runs in the background on any window and it'll put the time, the real time actually up in the corner, and it'll keep showing it even if you're doing other stuff in that window.
Yep.
Now, for people that don't know what TSR is,
Terminate and stay resident. It's technically not. I mean, that's pretty well OS9 if you want to set it up that way. But for those that are more used to the PC parlance, that would be closer.
Okay.
Stays on top.
The other thing is they didn't have any concern about 1999 back then, did they? Do you think that was?
I can't remember. Well, like Chris's would have been based on whatever the internal OS9 clock was, and by 91 when this came out, I can't remember. That should have been fixed by then. Do you remember, Brian Schubring? When did Glennside come out with the Y2K patches? That was, well, maybe it was a bit later. It might have been 96 or 97.
Because it's weird because the basic problem was not that the time was wrong, but they were printing 19 and then a byte and assuming that would always be right when it should have been 1900.
Yeah, because internally it has the year since
right.
Since 1900 up to 255, which means as long as they just added to 1900, they could have went to 2155 just fine. But yeah, they hard-coded it.
String slicing. So depending on what he did, it might have accidentally been perfect.
So yeah, I just thought I'd kind of share that because we were talking about Burke and Burke stuff last week there. So one item there. So at CoCo Fest, I showed this here. I think it was the week after CoCo Fest. This is a board there that Don Barber was making. It was the USB serial pack for the color computer, and he was selling just the board. And if you go out to his GitHub there, you can get all the components that you'd have to put on there. And we were talking about how this could probably be condensed down and stuff like that. But I picked up his board. But I knew I had some empty cases, and I found one of them, and I just wanted to kind of show that his board does fit nicely. I have a couple of these empty shells where it's not something that's salvaged. These were actually brand new stock type cases.
Yeah, it's like what happened to the speech sound pack that used to be in it.
Yep, nope, this is brand new, never been used. No screws in or anything like that. This was, so I don't know if this is what Tandy used or if this was some new old Tandy stock. I'm not sure, but
it didn't yellow.
No.
Yeah, it would have to be either the York 90 or the speech sound pack type thing. It's white.
Drops nicely right in there, and the screw holes all line up there. So when I get ready to build this project, up here where the USB port would go, I just need to cut a little slot right there, and I'll have a nice little case for this project.
So now I have to dig out all of my long card stuff and see if it was possibly cut out of something like that by Tandy.
Yeah.
But they start with that in different colors, and oh, man, I got to dig everything out of the attic.
I have a couple of these empty shells like this. So
now, if you mess up, is that ABS plastic? Can you use that?
Yeah, you can just use the pen.
Right.
Fill her back in.
So that was that. I just want to kind of share that. That was kind of fun. And then last week, David Crocker was showing his project, and I was just I don't know if he showed one of these or not. The actual.
I think he just showed the new one, like his replacement version of it.
His replacement. Okay. So yeah, I do have one of this, and I also have a pair of the guns that he was showing. So I haven't had a chance to fire it up yet, but I do want to try it out on some of those games.
No, wait, he calls it a phaser?
It's
It's
a light
called light
phaser. Well,
phaser.
this,
Yeah.
this,
Light
this is what
phaser?
this is what Sega called it there. So yeah.
Wow, so future.
Well, I ripped off Star Trek from the 60s, so I don't know.
Really?
But you can see here how this one here, the battery was external, which is one of the things that he's trying to
Eliminate any of
eliminate out of that. So, but yeah. So, but it
Because
kind
I
of
do remember
inspired
if
me
you
to-
accidentally left this plugged into the CoCo, that battery went fast.
Oh, it would drain down.
Like within
So-
a day or two, it would drain it dead.
So,
They never showed the battery on the phaser on Star Trek.
so yeah, I do want to try this out. I want to pull up the games that he talked about and that this worked well in. Was there just 2 games? I know he talked about 2, but were there other games?
There was 2 that were released. I did see some prototypes that Dave had shown me and Bill at Rainbow Fest. He had like a Wild West one going, which he had demoed, and there was a second one. I can't remember what exactly it was because he was just starting that one. But the Wild West one was pretty well done. But that's when the big spat between Rainbow and Dicom started. So that never happened.
Well, it'd be interesting because I know he said that he picked up a lot of the phaser guns, and he's going to try to repair them. And if he gets some of these out there, maybe they might get enough out there that might inspire somebody to maybe create a game.
Yeah, and the fact that
might
Tim
use-
Linder has actually written the driver for it already, so you can actually do the reading of where the gun is aimed
Yeah.
at the screen type thing. The only problem is now is that, of course, it doesn't work with LCDs, which a lot of us have now.
Right.
You will need a CRT style monitor.
Yep. It should work with like a CM8 and all of that.
Yep. Yep. CM8, Magnavox. I've used it on both of those regular TV sets.
So along that lines with light, I wanted to show this here. See how many people have seen one of these before.
Oh, light pen.
A little light pen. I just kind of thought I'd dig that out. 'Cause it kind of goes along that same line with the light from the CRT.
You know when when we had the what's that pen pad that we have for the CoCo? I thought that
X-Pad.
I thought that was a light pen when it first came out and stuff, and then I realized no, they're drawing like it has a pen in there.
Yep.
Well, there's a pen in there, and then that pad that you're drawing on is a resistive pad, I believe, or it might be capacitive. But anyway, it's doing XY coordinates as you touch the pen to that pad.
Actually, you don't even have to touch too. If you hover just a little bit above it, can actually register that. And some of
Okay.
the drawing programs took advantage. Like if you had the pen close but not touching, it would just show the little cursor moving around. As soon as you touched, it would actually draw whatever you're touching.
Okay, so it's
So
probably
how
doing
does
some-
this work?
Well, this here works basically kind of the same way as the phaser gun works, where inside the base of this would be a photo resistor. So just like, because it plugs into the joystick port. So with the joystick, when you're moving the joystick, you're moving a potentiometer, which changes the resistance, which then changes the voltage across that voltage divider. This is doing the same thing, but instead of a potentiometer, it's using a photoresistor that's inside here. So depending on the amount of light that's coming in through the tip of this, because it's hollow, depending on the amount of light that's coming in here, that changes the resistance. So in a sense, this is acting just like a joystick when it's plugged in, and actually this plugs into the joystick port. So
But there's no button.
nope, there's no button. It's just you're just pointing it at the screen.
I remember
So,
Spectrum Projects used to sell a lot of these in the early 80s, like 82, 83, and then it kind of died off after a while. I don't know. I never did actually have one, and I never did program for it. Like, does it register different voltages, like the different readings that you're doing, based on the color that it's under or the brightness of the
It
whatever's
might be
lit
the
up?
brightness. So here I brought up the Coco Man's joystick tester, and you can see that right now it's at 25. If I put my finger over the tip of this, you can see it drops right down to 0. And as I move my finger away here, you can see how it kind of starts as more light comes in. I'm going to point it at the light up on my ceiling here, and you can see. So this would be like full light. So as I'm going to move my hand in front of it. I know you guys can't see this, but I'm moving my hand in front of it, and you can see how it kind of drops up and down.
So if you point it at your screen and then you point it at, say, the black text on the bottom versus the green text, I'm assuming it would be a lower
Right.
number on the bottom.
Yep. So I got it right in the center of the screen right now. So this is the green of the center of the screen. You can see here it's kind of about 18, 19 right there. So I'll move down to the bottom there where you indicated, Curtis, there down in the black. So you can see that that's now reading 0. I got it pointing between the word test and Coco Man right now. on
So
that
if
black
you
bar.
if you scanned a white dot across the screen, there would be exactly one time when that spiked up to a really high number, and you'd know where your pen was pointed.
Right.
And the human wouldn't see that because the white dot would scroll by and just kind of lighten the screen a little bit without making a visible scanning dot that you would see.
Yeah, I was reading the manual a little bit, and I think there was a couple there was some programs that were available for it. One was like a drawing program where you could basically probably like, I'm assuming, point at two coordinates on the screen and it would draw a line between those two coordinates, something like that. So,
right.
The program that it also talked about was a drawing program where you could, I think you could pick different colors, it said, and you could basically draw a picture by going dot by dot.
So you're kind of going at it backwards because the program knows it has just flashed a dot at some number. Did this pin pick it up? No. And just go down the line until you match up, and now you know where the pin is on the screen.
Right.
Without needing any fancy hardware. Just I started at 1 and 1 and ended up at, whatever the bottom.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how specific those numbers are to different colors, because maybe you could have a game where the person has to wave the wand and try to follow a moving object, and as long as it's a certain color, it's going to do a certain reading, and it won't on other colors.
Chase the red thing.
I don't know if that would work. Yeah, I don't know if that would work or not, but
so CocoMan.biz gave you a deal on that software, huh?
Oh yes, yep. The low introductory price of 0 cents. So yes, it's a deal on any
that
day.
Doesn't make any sense.
we have a couple comments on there. Shauner in the chat, and I should mention he's actually Sean Driscoll, the person who created the GUI B library that we have included with Nitrous 90UU. He said it was used in addition to your other input devices. And then 60, Karen, the author of XROAR, says the software that came with the Trojan light pen was awful. It would kind of fill from the top, then fill from the left, all in BASIC to find the location. So imagine that's pretty slow.
Ooh.
Then lastly, the last thing that I was going to share here, and if Nick Marentes is still awake,
he is. Yes, the news hasn't started yet, so
I came across this here in my group of stuff here.
Ah, yes, I remember that.
So I thought I had the disc, but I wasn't able to locate it. But it came with the disc here and 5 of his programs here, games or so. But inside here though was it was kind of nice. It had description of some of the different games here that you had in here. Kind of a whole gallery of there, and then a couple of the inserts here. So
you tried too. You paid too much.
I see that exactly. You didn't have the cheat sheet.
So those color ones there, Nick, that's the ones that you actually had made that Tandy sold in Australia.
The Tandy, that was what So
it's even got the Tandy part numbers for Australia in the bottom, the catalog numbers.
Yeah, they were the official ones, and they were with a cassette and in a plastic baggie.
The Donut Dilemma guy looks like my cousin Iggy.
So I thought I'd just kind of share that. I thought that might bring back a nice memory there for Nick. So,
and Nick, when did you sell this package like this, or was this just like, or when abouts would you have done that?
I didn't sell it. I'm not sure. Was that at a? Did I have that for Coco Pen Fest?
Pen Fest? I'm trying to remember. Yeah. That's where I was thinking I might I already had them all from you before that, so I didn't pick it up if it was there. But yeah, probably.
Because I know I didn't sell it.
Did you make your own manuals?
Website. Looking at that website down the bottom there, that's about the era of Pen Fest.
Okay.
So did you make your own paper manuals with the saddle stapler?
Trying to think how I made that. Yeah,
there's a tell. if you flip it over, the staples are on the front, and I made my manuals myself. And you would staple it with a saddle stapler, and then you would slide it on the edge of your disc till the staples caught and fold the edge over, which meant the staples weren't in the back; they were actually kind of on the front. If you lay it down flat, you'll see the staples are on the front.
Well, in this
close
case,
the book.
No, his staples are on the inside right here.
Well, no, but close the book and let it just sit on the table. See how the staples are on the front? That's where you fold it over the edge of the table to put the crease in the back of it as you make all your manuals up.
See, Bill and I just cheated. We had all this equipment for doing this professionally at work, so we just used that.
You need this.
Oh yeah, there you go.
It's a stapler with a really long throat. No, I wouldn't know how to.
But I just kind of this here did kind of jump out right here. It says keep an eye out for the large Space Invader figure and OS9 logo in the background.
Yep, that's the best part of that game.
Yeah, that is. Yeah.
It's funny too because I've watched a few people like review it and play it live on streams and stuff, and they don't even. They're so busy with the action, trying to like shoot the aliens and not get killed, that they don't even notice that stuff going by.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's
All right.
all I had to share today, gentlemen.
And that's the end of the show.
Great
And
job.
we didn't even have to talk about Neutroid. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was in
And
there.
now for Neutroid.
Okay. Commercial break and then game on results.
Commercial break. Yes.
Okay.
Commercial
Sure.
break. Yes.
Okay.
Let her rip.
The CoCo Nation Show is an unscripted, live, and interactive broadcast. Anything can and will happen. The views and opinions expressed by members of the panel and the live audience are their own, and not necessarily those of the CoCo Nation Show, its sponsors, affiliates, or subsidiaries. Open minds are encouraged, and a sense of humor is recommended. Thank you for being a part of the CoCo Nation.
Hey, Amy. Hey, Taylor. We're watching the CoCo Nation Show. Yeah, we are. Woo! You should too.
The CoCo Nation Show would like to thank the following patrons: Alex Gayer, Brendan Donahue, Brian Walsh, Brian Weasler, Kieran Anscombe, Daddy Burrito, Diego BF109, Dinty's Hideaway, Don Barber, Eric Canales, Glenn Hewlett, Grant Leedy, John Boat of Carshaller, Henry Strickland, Justin Larson, Ken Reichard, Mike Rayburn, Patrick Euland, Paul Fiscarelli, Paul Shoemaker, R. Allen Murphy, Retro Tech Time, Rob Inman, Rocky Hill, Steve Batson, Terry Steege, Tom C., Tom Gunderson, Tom S., Tony C., and William Athing. Thank you so much, patrons.
Welcome to everybody's favorite segment, Who's New to Discord?
Bill O1 says, my name is Bill O. I had my first exposure to programming on a timeshare system in high school. There I learned BASIC and Fortran 4. Fast forward to February 1981 when I bought my 4K color BASIC box, which I soon had upgraded to 16K EXP. I retire in a week and will then have time to set up my recently acquired CoCo 3. I have experimented with the emulators and wanted the real thing once more. I look forward to attending next year's CoCoFest and possibly Tandy Assembly later this year and reconnect with the CoCo community. The previous bios were edited for time. Thanks to Boysen, Glenside Computer Club, Kev Hole, Nightbeard, Paul Fiscarelli, Paul Shoemaker, Tandy Color Computer 3, and the CoCo Nation patrons for boosting the server. Please consider joining Discord and visiting the welcome section to read these bios in full and see what the community has to offer. Just go to discord.thecoconation.com. Pro tip: after swapping your 6809 CPU for the Hitachi 6309, be sure to take a moment to savor the smug superior feeling.
Because cocoing is better together.
Welcome everybody to the CoCo Nation Game On Challenge of the Week results video. This week we played Wizard's Den, and we had a total of 17 participants. Exile in Paradise with 6,100. Mark B with 17,300. Bill A with 25,250. Damon Beals 30,250. L. Curtis Boyle 37,500. Mr. Dave 6309 70,050. Coconut Bob 75,000. Nine Finger Tom 84,850. Ed Rhodes 86,150. Shenley 87,100. TJB Chris 90,450. Canadian Retro Things 101,300. 8 Bits in the Basement 144,200. Rich N 148,600. Sloopy Malibu 177,950. Sabhead 201,700. And the number one score this week was Tasman with 206,500. Thanks everybody that played, and we'll see you again next week.
And here I thought I did real good because I found level 2.
So you discovered that games actually have a level 2, hey Mark?
Yeah, it's not just this rumored theory thing.
So I think people actually had a lot of fun playing Wizard's Den, as a lot of people were saying that they had never heard of this game. It was one they did not see back in the day when it came out. So I did find a couple articles on it in Rainbow. Let's see, Rainbow June of '88. On the high score, we had somebody that submitted 195,050, and we actually beat that, so that I think is a fairly reasonable score. And where's the other one? Oh, actually, it's on the same thing. I shouldn't have stopped my share. There we go. Rainbow, January of '88. They had an article, a review of it, nice big half-page full-color picture of the screen. So, basically, they said that it was a bit of an overly done type of game, but this release did breathe a bit of new life into the old routine, and several features set Wizard's Den apart. It was very user-friendly. If you select the joystick option, the keyboard sequence also still works, which helps in going through some tight spots. It's very welcoming to all ages of kids, and the documentation is adequate, but the on-screen information is more than enough. And they suggest using the joystick, that it greatly enhances the quality of playing the game. So I think this reviewer definitely really liked the game.
I know Aaron and Boat, they did their pre-record of the Coco Show on Friday, and they really liked the game too. They'll be releasing that to YouTube later on.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess Aaron played it enough this week. He actually got up through level 3 or 4 or something like that, and actually did quite well. So he's planning on doing a live stream at some point and actually seeing if he can finish it because he wants to. There's 8 levels, I believe. Is that correct?
There's 8 levels. Yeah. I think I got to level 4 once. So, yeah, I found the definitely for the biggest tip for the game is get to know which things to pick up are poisonous, because you lose a lot of health accidentally picking up poison vials. So
yeah, they're fixed too. Like it's not randomized.
Yeah,
right?
it's fixed, and the poison vials look different than the helpful ones. So once you get to actually pay attention to what you're going to pick up, then It's actually the first few times I played it, I didn't realize I was picking up poison, and I would be like, okay, I have lots of hit points. And then I'd go through a room and I'd look and I'm like, how in the heck did I lose like 3/4 of my hit points?
Yeah.
So
no, it's definitely a sleeper hit. I think it's a game that was great when it was released. It was one of the best of this type of game for the CoCo 1 and 2. I think the main reason most people didn't hear of it is one, Tom Mix was starting to get out of the CoCo community by the time this got released. Not totally, but they were kind of like not doing their massive multi-page ads they used to do. And I think it had the misfortune of being released right around the same time that CoCo 3 was. So people who bought CoCo 3s, this is a really good game, but they wanted, 16 colors and they wanted all the fancy stuff. So I think it kind of fell to the wayside, just a, bad timing.
Which is unfortunate because, it's definitely a very good game.
Yeah. I know Boat said during his little brief review of it there that his favorite side, scrolling, sort of gauntlet style or whatever you want to call it game had been Time Bandit up until now, and now Wizard's Den's his favorite. So he thinks it's better than Time Bandit, which is a classic on the CoCo as well.
Yeah. Well, I think this definitely has the teeth to be a classic if more people had known about it.
Yeah. Tom Mix said a few of these. Dragon Slayer was another one which you covered on the Game On Challenge before, which had 160 screens to go through, and I bought that one in person. Wizard's Den I didn't. I don't remember seeing Tom Mix selling it, to be honest. Might have been snuck off to the side somewhere.
Well, like you said, it was an unfortunate time for it to have been released. So
Mike Miller in the chat is saying, wow, sounds like it needs a Dragon port. I agree, and definitely graphics-wise, I mean, if you played it in P Mode 3, you did get some odd colors, but you played black and white. I don't think too much is color dependent. The problem it's going to be, this one requires a disk drive, and Dragon DOS, unlike Extended Basic and Color Basic, is pretty violently different on the Dragon than it is on the CoCo. It's, we use granules. They actually did sectors, and they're not compatible in the slightest. So somebody would have to rewrite all the disk routines in order to port to the Dragon. So that'd be like a Kieran or a Parasrat thing. They've done it before, so it's not impossible, but it would take a fair bit of effort, I think.
Like that, violently different.
Yeah, and I know that a few people did have trouble loading it. I haven't figured out why some people were able to change the color set, like when you load it up if the colors are backwards. Like on my computer, if I hit reset and tried to do it, then it wouldn't load.
There, from what I understand, there was a couple of bugs I saw being mentioned. The other one was if you had hit reset to reset the colors, you couldn't hit E to enter it. Into the game.
That's what I'm talking about. Like,
so there's something in the reset trap routine that is mucking something up, either a basic variable or something.
But some people were saying they didn't have that problem. So
I wonder if there's two versions floating around. Maybe one's bad and one's good or something.
It might be. Oh, well. I didn't mind playing it in the reverse colors. It didn't make that much of a difference.
6 or 87 gimme. I know mine is an 86 and it has that reset glitch. Damon Beals said he had an 86 and had the same reset thing. So I'm wondering if the people that don't have it are the ones with 87 gimmies. We did check DRAM versus SRAM, and on the 86 gimme, it didn't matter which RAM type you had, it would do that. But the real tip I think was Coconut Bob said just hold down your F1 when you power it on, and then you don't have to go through the reset screen, and then you can go in the game.
Yeah, with the right
just
colors.
play it with the colors backwards. It's a fantasy world. There could have been orange trees.
I will make one comment. I've seen two comments in the chat. One was Alan, actually, who was just talking there about Time Bandit and Wizard's Den, the same universe, same trees. And 60 says same baddies, some of them. They are subtly different. They're not exactly the same. I thought that too when I first saw it. But the trees and those weird creatures like with the little tentacles and stuff, I can't remember what they're called in either of the games, actually, off the top of my head. But they're not exactly the same. They are a little bit different. Now, were they kind of borrowed and then modified a little bit? Or were they just coincidentally the same? I think there was so much time between the two games, like 4 years. I think it probably was at least inspired by. It's a really well done game, and the author of it, that's Matt Harper, I think. Is that correct?
I believe so. Yeah.
As far as I know, he never did another Coco game, which is a shame because that was an excellent. I would have loved to see what he could have done with a Coco 3.
Yeah. Even a version of this type of game, like take the same style of gameplay and just make another version into the Coco 3 would have been interesting to see.
Yeah. Nick, you could do that instead of Neutroid 3 or 4 or whatever the heck you're on now.
16.
I'm
I think
way
he's
beyond
Neutroid
that. I'm
16.
Neutroid. Neutroid's going to be the greatest game ever.
In Nick's
You're just
mind
gonna
only,
keep-
folks.
You're going to keep doing it until it's the greatest game, right?
Yeah. He'll be on his deathbed. One more change,
gonna-
it'll be better.
I've got to hammer it into him.
Now there's a good game. Go with the Hammeroid.
Yeah.
All right. Well, does anybody have any tips or tricks for this game that haven't been mentioned? Or
I didn't get a chance to play it enough to really get a good score. I had the one score playing it in 1 hour.
I mean,
the
Mark,
first day,
you
and then
found level 2, so you should have some tips and tricks.
Let's see. Stay off the bones. In fact, I did the reading of the directions on this one.
You did. I'll get to that though.
Oh, yeah. Okay, that's right. No one else heard it though. Well, let's see. So I guess there was these rock things in there that you couldn't. Sometimes you can go over, sometimes you couldn't. Wasn't too sure on that. Those little white boulder things.
I think it was an attempt to have kind of a 3D perspective that sometimes you could go over it if you were offset from it enough that it would be passing behind you or whatever.
Okay, but no, you only played it a little bit there.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, I guess that was Wizard's Den, and the other game that we played this week was Shaft.
Neutroid. Oh.
No, sorry, Nick. You got to wait until Sloopy's choosing the games again. He'll probably choose another version of Neutroid.
Next week.
So, Shaft is basically a game where you have to run across the screen and avoid getting hit by elevators.
kind of reminds me of Coco Fest a few years back. Oh no, we got trapped in the elevator. That was different.
Well, now going to Coco Fest, you avoid the elevators.
Yeah. Or just the elevators with David Ladd aboard them. One of the two.
Just avoid David Ladd.
So did anybody play that game and have any thoughts on that? We are playing that one for one more week as well.
I'm hoping to have some time to do it with the long weekend here. This weekend. I have played it, obviously before. It definitely is one that ramps up the difficulty pretty quick after you go through the first set of screens, and then it starts getting, really hard to get the timing right.
Wait, ramps it up? First set of screens is hard enough to get by.
Oh, I know, it gets way worse.
That's one thing about the game is that it really does depend on how they randomly place the elevators, whether you're even going to make it across or not.
Yeah, it's a very simple concept game, but it's I know I haven't played every arcade game or every game on every other 8-bit system, but I don't remember seeing anything like it previously.
I think there is a couple games that are similar to it, but yeah.
Crocker and Joey come to mind.
I remember watching somebody do a review of a game a while back that looked very much like this game, but I can't remember what it was. It had something to do with working in a restaurant. So, but yeah, okay, well, if nobody has anything else to say about that, it's just basically a game where you have to just keep trying.
Yep, eventually it just requires a Coco 1 or 2 16K joystick,
yeah. Or Coco 3.
Yeah, at least a Coco 1 or 2 with 16K, but
yeah,
because the Wizard's Den, if I remember, that requires 64K, so you need a maxed out Coco 1 or 2.
So yeah, I would say Shaft is a little bit addicting and frustrating.
Yeah, that's a sign of a good game, which is why Neutroid's not.
All right. No more mentioning Neutroid today. New rule: no more mentioning Neutroid today.
Especially from Nick.
So we did do the live stream Game On Challenge on Thursday night. That is right here. Now, unfortunately, for about the first hour, we played the game and then realized we weren't streaming. So we missed Mark's dramatic reading of the instructions for Wizard's Den, which actually took up about 20 minutes of the first hour. So as we said, he did read the instructions for it, just nobody got to hear it except for the people that were in the channel. So it was just a technical glitch, but we actually did have a few people in playing and chatting and having fun. So we went for about another hour and 20 minutes after that, once we finally actually started streaming.
Yeah, we had to find the on button.
Yeah. We forgot to press the on button. Oh well. And as you can see, both Wizard's Den and Shaft were played quite a bit by just about everybody. Went back and forth between the games, I think.
Yeah, and that's a sign of a good set of games. If you're get a little bit flustered in one, you go to the other one, then you get flustered with that one, you go back to the first one, but you're not just sticking with one because you don't like the other one. That's actually a good sign. I'm noticing here, whoever's on the top middle, I don't know who that was there, but they're actually playing it with the online X-Roar, which I don't think we've seen too often on the live Game On Challenge, have we?
That might be 8-Bits in the Basement.
Okay. Because that's a good solution for people who don't want to have to bother installing actual full-blown emulators on their system and finding the right ROMs and all that kind of stuff. It's just an online in your browser. Away you go.
And I do have to give a special shout out to 8-Bits in the Basement, Peter, there, because he joined us from France, which was 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning for him.
It was 4 in the morning. I heard by the end of it.
Yeah,
he said I have to go to bed
4 in the morning. He's like,
that's dedication.
Yeah, that deserves a special shout out for joining the live stream at between 2 and 4 o'clock in the morning for him.
And I guess we should shout out Nick Moretti's too, because he shows up here every week for the show at roughly the same time. For him, it's 4 in the morning.
Yeah, but
I am still sleeping.
He gets up and then gets to go take a nap. Peter had to stay up and actually stay awake and play the game. And
well, worse yet, he keeps plugging that other game that we don't want to mention anymore. So
I find I sleep better when I watch the show,
especially during the news.
Well, that's more like an induced coma.
So, again, that's on Thursday nights that we do that. That's 5 o'clock my time. So later than that for everybody else, because I'm on the West Coast. So
got an update on this. 8-Bits in the Basement said no, he used VCC on the hard drive.
Oh, he used VCC. Okay.
And so Coco Strangiato said that was me on X-Roar, and I couldn't get any of the controls working.
Oh, okay. That's
so. Karen, I know you're in the chat. Is there an issue with some of the controls? Have you tried Wizard's Den on the online X-Roar? I'm kind of curious.
Well, I think Sloopy tried it on during the show too, and it worked for him. So
it might have been a browser setting or something.
Possibly. I am the least knowledgeable person when it comes to X-Roar, so I have no idea.
Yeah, I know a bit about the desktop downloadable version of X-Roar, but I've used the online one once in a blue moon just to see if I try to remember a game, and I can't remember what it looks like. I'll just quickly fire it up and from the Color Computer Archive, and then okay, that's the one, and then
that's how I choose games. I just go through and hit the play now. Yeah, that game looks good.
Kieran's actually working on a new version of X-Roar with one new feature which he showed me yesterday. So I don't know if he wants it mentioned yet, but Kieran, if you're there,
we can override him and you can just tell us.
Hey, no, I'm just wondering, Kieran, do you want me to mention or show it on the show in the news, or top secret for now?
Well, he just answered one thing. He said, I've not tried it. The one on the Color Computer Archive is quite old now, but the keyboard joystick should generally work, but it's several versions behind from the desktop one. So
one thing with the XRoar Online that I've run into when I use the web version is sometimes with the browser, you might have to click to a different tab and then click back to get the controls to go from the browser into the XRoar. And on the tablet, I've actually had to switch from one app to another and switch back occasionally.
So it's losing focus on that app or something for linking the.
Yeah.
Okay.
Interesting.
So in the browser, sometimes the browsers have like a little virtual cursor they keep with where you're at on the screen, and it's not in the XRoar itself. It's somewhere else. And so switching tabs and then clicking back into the XRoar window directly, or switching apps and coming back has occasionally jiggled that mouse for me and gotten it to work. So, but I've had it where the XRoar is completely unresponsive. You can't type anything, and until you click into the window or switch tabs and then click back and click into the window or switch apps. So maybe try that.
Yeah, 60 says, yeah, clicking in the emulator window is sometimes useful. I think I've actually encountered that too now that you mentioned it, where it kind of loses its link to what you're doing. He also mentioned for Nick here, he said, go for it. I've mentioned what I'm doing before. Feel free.
Okay, I can show you a screenshot later in the game news.
That's up next. So, yeah.
Yeah.
But first, we have Ken has to make a big announcement here.
Okay, well.
Oh, yes. Neutroid.
So that was the two games that we played last week, and we are playing
Neutroid.
We are not playing Neutroid.
You see what Brian's playing right now, by the way? Brian Weasler?
Neutroid.
No, he's playing a Medieval Madness with his gun.
Yeah.
Okay, so back to what I was saying.
Roll into the game news and you can show Brian Weasler's thing.
We are playing Shaft again for another week. And I decided to stay with kind of the elevator theme on this.
You're just trying to scare me and David to get it to, what do they call that when you get traumatized?
This is a game that I had actually promised Coco Man that I was going to do on the Game On Challenge. So does anybody recognize this game?
Yes.
Warehouse. Willie's Warehouse.
Ding, ding, ding. Give the man a prize.
That's it.
We haven't done this one already? I thought we did.
I don't think so.
I don't think so. Not
or maybe I'm
this
thinking
one,
Candy Company by the same.
We played Candy Company.
We did do that, yeah.
So
I find this one actually more fun myself personally, but
for complete sake, I will show there is Willie's Warehouse, and we will play on level 1. No need to change the settings because it's hard enough.
Yep. Another one that ramps up difficulty fairly quick.
Spelt kamikaze wrong.
He could have just made a new word.
Well, possibly, like I always do.
All right,
that's a good pick. That's a really good game.
Those are the two for next week. So Shaft and Willie's Warehouse.
And for those who want to know what to run it on, Willie's Warehouse requires a joystick, 32K, and a CoCo 1 or 2 or 3, I believe.
I believe so. I don't
think it needs 64. I think it just needs 32.
I should actually look these things up before I announce the games, shouldn't I?
Yeah, I mean, for people with emulators, it's not really a big deal. But for those who want to play it on real hardware, you want to make sure you at least have the right system to play it.
I'm just quickly looking that up and exactly what we need for that. And Willie's Warehouse requires CoCo 1, 2, or 3, 32K RAM, joystick optional.
Oh, so it's keyboard or joystick. Okay. Or I screwed up one of the two.
Yep. So if you go into the option screen, you can change between joystick and keyboard.
Okay,
and
cool.
1 or 2 players. So this could be a good sibling rivalry game. Tim, if you're listening.
Yeah, they just did Buzzworm, which we'll be covering in the Game On News.
Yeah.
And
funnily enough, they recorded it before the fest there, and they're hyping up the fest, and we're gonna get to meet all the people, and they release it like a month later.
Is this game written by the same person who did Candy Co?
Yep.
David Clark.
Yeah, David Clark from
Right.
Intracolor. Also did Color Pede, Robotac, Grand Prix, which is the only one of theirs, I think, of his that's actually disappointing. Because that has those whiplash corners.
Oh yeah. So is Willy's Warehouse his last game or latest of the games he did?
Did Willie's come out after or before?
It came out in
Candy
'84,
Coat?
so
I honestly don't remember which of the two came out, if they came out simultaneously. I know Color Pede was first, Robotac was second. I think Grand Prix was third, and then the other two, I'm not sure what order they came in off the top of my head.
Yeah.
all right. Well, that's all I have to say about the Game On Challenge, except hey, Thursday nights you have no excuse not to be there. If Peter could make it at 3 o'clock in the morning for him, you can make it for whatever time it is for you.
Yeah, Nick.
I'm so ashamed.
I mean, I couldn't get on the stream because I wouldn't be able to play the game because I was actually working, but at least I popped up in the chat and let them know that you're not streaming. But it's a nice background, even just to listen and occasionally pipe in with some snarky comment. I mean, some tips or something.
Yes, we really enjoy all of your tips.
Advice.
Yeah.
Don't die.
I mean, it's a
All
good
right.
pick. That's a really fun game. It's that I think is an original concept, though. Hopefully, I'm right on that one. I've never seen anything like that. But I've been surprised before where people found a game that was done in like 1979 in the arcade that we cloned, and I had no idea.
And I guess if people don't know what you're doing in that game, you got to grab numbers from one side and put them over top of the numbers from the other side. They're scrolling in opposite directions, and you have to avoid the bad guys. And
Yeah. And you can take the box, and all of a sudden, if a guy suddenly shows up on your moving platform and he's going to run you over because you can't jump or anything, you can take the box and drop it on the thing's head and kill it.
now
You can
I
also
have
store them
seen-
temporarily in the middle, and then other things will come by and push them out on you.
I have seen versions of this game that I think were later, but
I mean, on other platforms, or
yeah, on other
Oh, okay.
platforms.
I haven't. Cool.
Often where it's not necessarily numbers, but it's like items. It'll be like a shoe, a pair of pants, a shirt, and you got to match them up.
Okay. Do you happen to remember what platform or what the game was called? I've never
Not
seen
a
those.
clue. I just know that it looked really familiar when I saw it, but I'm sure that it was a much newer platform.
Okay. Was it a game console or a home computer thing? Do you remember?
I'm pretty sure it was a computer.
Okay. That'd be cool. I mean, I'm wondering if the person took the idea from the warehouse game on the CoCo, or if the same author decided to rewrite it for a platform. So I'd be kind of curious to find that out. Anyway, since we were talking about the laser gun thing here, I might as well just highlight Brian Weasler, because a lot of people haven't seen this in action because you need the interface and you need an actual gun and you need a CRT. So there's a lot of things going against you doing it modern times. But for those who want to kind of see what one of the games looks like, this was the second game that Dicom brought out. And basically you have to shoot anything coming after your wandering knight there. He's armed with a spear or sword, but he never uses the darn thing. So it's up to you with your arrows to shoot everything else. And I can't remember how many screens there are, but there's a ton of them. And you have to eventually kill a dragon by shooting it in the heart in a cave, if I remember correctly. I've actually won the game a couple times, but in so long, I don't remember too much about it.
It's not too bad. It's kind of hard getting kind of a feel for where it's shooting at there, but it's kind of fun. I think a larger display might make it a little bit easier. I'm using my CM8 monitor.
Yeah, it's like a 13-inch monitor. So
Right.
Yep. So I don't
Jim
know if
Rice saying it's a little like
display-
Crossbow from the arcade. That is true. I've actually seen Crossbows. So
So is the blink when you fire, or
yeah,
There's a glitch.
no, it's not a glitch. That's actually so that the gun works because of the way it works.
No, the graphics, you can see it's glitched.
It's shifted.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh
I don't
yeah.
think-
I don't know. It looks that way on my monitor as well. It's not my video capture.
the
It actually looks
sprite's
that
good.
way.
The background is broken.
Yeah, the background.
Yeah, this was heavily copy protected, so it's possible maybe it didn't get quite copied properly. I do have the originals. I'll have to check to see if it works properly in mine. Maybe I'll have to bring it to the next fest, and Mr. Ladd can use his magical grease weasel and get it, off without any glitches. I will mention here too, this high score screen, it actually plays some digitized music in the background while it's waiting for you to start the game. Because we can't hear it right now.
Oh, don't worry, Curtis. We'll definitely grease you up for that one.
Oh God!
Did you say this is Coco 3 game?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, because of the stuff going
What
on.
was the
Only 128K though. It doesn't need 512. Neither of them. The first game for the gun, Iron Force, doesn't either.
Iron Force? Is that what? Okay, I was trying to remember what the other one was there.
Yeah, I might as well show it quickly too, just so the people that have never seen the phaser gun games can actually see what they look like. Iron Force is a bit of an easier game to play.
Iron.
Iron.
Yeah, just iron. Yeah.
See here, do I need to mount this disc to disc 1?
Iron 1 is the one you boot off of. Iron 2, I think, is the graphics and the boards. So you have to boot off the SDF.
Do I have to mount that disc?
I would. Can't hurt.
Yeah, I can't remember if it's hard coded for drive 0 and you have to swap discs, or if it actually lets you select it.
Let's find out here. I noticed that, see, I get that green, and it seems like it's that green blocking. It seems like it locks up on my machine, but if I hit reset, it clears it up, and then the game continues.
Oh, that's weird.
On a Coco 3, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, mine does that too.
I like the graphics, so.
Yeah, the graphics, as you can see here, were done by Kevin Hoare. And if you guys have played F-16 Assault, he wrote that game for the Coco 1 and 2. I guess it does let you pick the drive.
Graphics.
There we go.
1.
1.
Yep. Insert graphic, just hit enter. Okay. I've never played this game before, so it's going to be.
Check the dove in this case. It's the same methodology as the other one.
Oh, okay. Oh, there we go.
Like, don't shoot it.
Oh, but don't.
The dove
shoot
of
it.
peace, and he goes and blasts it right out of the sky
Okay, so I gotta get all the evil stuff around it then.
before they kill the dove, because they can kill the dove too.
Oh, okay.
The only thing that comes to mind is I come in peace, and you go in pieces.
And it looks
I'll
like Brian's
definitely-
trying to shoot for lunch here or something.
Right?
Ooh, look at that skull guy there. This is much faster. Whoop. This is much
Yeah,
faster.
it's a
moving than the
simpler
other one.
game, and a lot less going behind and in front of things compared to the other one. But it doesn't make quite as much sense because you're seeing like planets and stuff here, and like a creature will go behind a planet. So how big is your friggin' dove then?
Right.
It's
No,
a
it's
space
perspective.
dove.
The planets.
Yeah, and it's
are,
about 5,000
further back.
miles across.
Yeah.
Well, those are in the foreground. That's just the background. Those are,
Well, you'll
light
watch
years
some of
away.
the shapes. Some of the creatures actually go behind them, though.
Oh, okay.
That's the part that always was a bit weird. I mean, it still looks cool, but
This could be a lot of fun. I think I could probably get my son to play this one. I'll have to definitely, maybe I'll bring this to, well, if David has it going by next year, I'll definitely have to get a setup like this at Coco Fest next year. Let people sit there and play this during the.
yeah, I know. Was it Henry Reitfeld brought it to Coco Fest? I think before COVID at some point. Somebody
Okay.
had brought it by, and I
Whoops.
didn't bring mine, but
Last
there
year.
you go. Now you get to see level 2, which I think is the actual force now. No, they're still in the mountain peaks first.
Henry had this at Coco Fest last year.
Was it
Did he?
last year?
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, because I actually got to try playing it.
Yeah, they did really good graphics on this. The backgrounds are on both of them are very well done. So are all the sprites. Gameplay, I mean, once you get used to it, it's fairly simple. It's protect something by shooting everything else, basically. But it definitely gets harder as you go.
I mean, I'm not even really like looking down the barrel, so to speak. I'm just kind of holding it in front of me, but you kind of get a sense of where, of where to be on the screen there.
Speeds up when there's less on the screen too.
Yeah, it does.
Might get to level 3.
Now, I haven't noticed on some of these. Do you have to hit them more than once in order to get them to destroy? I wonder.
I'm trying to remember.
Level complete. There we go. Oh, back to the planets.
Oh, right. It alternates. It goes back to the first, then you go up to the next planet, which is a different. Like the first one's mountains, the next one's got these iron pillars, if I remember.
Right.
Nick, is this giving you ideas for Neutroid 17?
With the light gun, yeah.
James, there is no audio coming through on this, just you know, but you should be able to hear us talk.
So
of course, if
all
he
I
can't
need
hear
to
us,
do
he
is-
won't notice.
All I need to do is add a duck in Neutroid, and that's
Oh,
it.
game over.
Yeah, you got it.
So anyway,
Ducktroid.
great score.
There you
Enter
go.
your name.
A Coco duck hunt comes to mind.
Yeah, there's one thing they changed between Iron Force and Medieval Madness. So Iron Force, you type in your name, your initials or your name, you know, manually with the keyboard. On Medieval Madness, which actually takes 3 discs instead of 2, you actually shoot your initials using the gun.
Novel.
So if Duck Hunt gets ported for this thing, please do the world a favor and make the dog shootable so that it will scare off.
Shoot the damn dog.
Everyone I know who ever played Duck Hunt, the first time the dog laughs at you, you aim the gun at the screen and you're like, okay, Fido, it's over. And then it just laughs again. No, the dog needs to jump off over the thing when you shoot it with the.
It needs to explode like the dove feathers.
Head
do
over
here.
heels away from you, yeah.
But I'll have to talk to David and find out what kind of things he's finding wrong with the guns, because I have 2 guns, and one of them works and the other one does not. The trigger works on the one gun, but I don't think the light sensor on the inside is working correctly. So I don't know if it's on the connector end. So I might reach out to David and find out what he's doing to get some of these working.
Is
Yeah.
Brian dickless or dickhole?
For the duck hunt, would it be funnier for the dog? Every time you shoot it, you shoot off one of his feet, legs, or something like that, and he keeps running, but with minus that limb.
Then he ends up like the knight in the Monty Python movie.
It jumps up with one ear and then no ears.
His butt a scratch. No, these are very visually good games as far as that. I mean, the gameplay is a little bit simplistic because of the limitations of the gun, obviously, but
I kind of feel like the reds or that's red thing right there. Sometimes I feel like I have to hit that one twice, but I don't know. Maybe I'm just.
Yeah, I honestly can't remember. I haven't played these in a while, to be honest.
Ooh, that blue swirly thing is tough. It moves pretty fast. So, but no, yeah, this is a lot of fun.
Cool.
I think there'll be a lot of people that'll be happy, and David gets that board out there. So,
yeah. And somebody last week was speculating that if you had a Pi or something, you might be able to fake returning the right signals without having to use a shared T, because that would be fast enough to keep up with the video, and you could write some underlying thing that would kind of cross the streams, I guess. I don't know how to describe it. That you could technically get it working with an LCD. You just need this Pi or something to be running in the background to kind of simulate the signals coming back and forth.
Well,
they've done that with the NES.
Oh, so that's already been done at some point? David?
Yes, there's someone's used a Pi with a little rig that goes over the end of the light gun that then you use with the Pi and it LCD TV. But I think it uses some of the technology from the Wiimotes, how you use a infrared bar on the top of your TV or on the bottom, and you calibrate it so it knows the up, left, and up, right, and bottom left and bottom right, so you have the X and Y's, and then it computes it.
So does it basically, once you do this little Pi thing, then it runs everything in backwards compatible? Like the programs themselves on the NES have no idea that you're not using
As
Back
far
to
as I
Barber.
know, I didn't really look at the project that closely because it.
Oh, okay.
That'd be cool. If we can get it running with modern LCDs, TVs and stuff, that would be awesome because that's what most of us, or the majority, maybe not most, but I'd say the majority of us are using these days. If we're using real hardware at all.
Do you think the screen is stretched in the vertical a little bit? Because none of the circles are round.
No, this looks like standard 4x3.
Well, when the game comes back on, look at the, the planets and stuff. They're oval. See, they're not round.
That might be my video capture because it looks correct on my CM8.
Okay.
Right. Getting 4x3 out of a capture card is impossible. I've given up. You get what you get.
But the colors are really nice.
Yeah, this is one
like
that
it.
really shines in RGB versus composite.
So anyway, yeah, I was kind of fiddling with it while you guys were doing the game on. I thought maybe.
And it just worked.
Yeah, it just worked. Yep, I just plugged it in. Everything just worked. So yeah. Yep, a lot of fun.
Yeah. Obviously, there's digitized sound effects and stuff too in both games, and some digitized music in Medieval Madness too that we're not hearing. But
So we haven't
Yeah,
seen the forest yet.
I'll have to
Nope.
figure out a way to get audio. How do you guys do? Not to, as I guess as a side note, but how do you guys when you're doing video capture like this off of real hardware? How are you guys capturing the audio?
On mine, there's an audio input jack on the capture thing that you can run to the audio out of the CoCo. And that's
Okay.
what I do.
Okay.
It's just a whole separate to a earphone jack. It goes into the capture device.
Okay. I'll play around with that. So.
okay. Thanks for showing us that, Brian, because I know a lot of people have not seen that. Now that we actually look like we have a reproduction of the adapter and picking up some older guns and fixing them up, it looks like it might be something that might be available for purchase again. So
yep.
And much of thanks to Tim Linder. If actually I was going to mention that too, because David Crocker actually sent me a correction. He said in the show notes I was mentioning that David Crocker. I mentioned that he was the one who wrote the test program. Actually, it was not. It was Tim that wrote the test program for testing the gun and the interface. So that's a correction. David was just using Tim's program to do the testing. So much thanks to Tim. And since Tim obviously has written his own blog post on recreating them from years back and fully understands how to program for it, I might have to take a look at see what is in there. And maybe it's possible to write like a background driver in ML that you could actually write a basic game. A simpler basic game that actually uses the gun, which would be kind of cool. I don't know if it's fast enough to do that, but there's not a heck of a lot moving on the screen if you're just shooting targets. You might be able to do it.
Right.
Okay. So do you want me to just go straight into the game on news, or did you want to do the little intro thingy?
We'll do the intro.
When you want the latest in TRS-80, Tandy, Dragon, MC-10, and all of their hardware cousins. No matter what it takes, or where news breaks, from around the world to your nation. The CoCo Nation News with L. Curtis Boyle.
That was a real life of me soldering too. That wasn't like an animation somebody did. Hey, so doing the game on news first. So of course Jim Gary's been busy when it's a pretty rare time that he's not. So we got multiple things here. So the first one is 3D MC Chase, which is a game he's done before, but this has now been redone with Greg Dion's basic compiler, so it runs a couple times faster. He also added support for the MC10 joypad, which we've demonstrated on the show before, and he added key repeats, so you can actually hold the keys down or the joypad down rather than just having to tap it individually each time. And you'll see here it takes place at the Heron Point Convention Center, which is, of course, where CoCo Fest was actually held up until recently. I don't know if it has the elevators that bust down, but it's actually running at a pretty good clip for a little 3D game. You got the maze on the right, and you kind of see where you are and the baddie is, and then you fill in dots rather than eat them. And then you get to 3D perspective on the left. So not a bad little compiled basic game, the MC10. Next up, we have Missile Attack, which he also has updated, compiling it. This game uses the SG6 mode, which is a little bit higher res but less colors. So it's 64 by 48 instead of 64 by 32, but only 4 colors, I think, or 3, can't remember. He's also updated this to have full 8-way versus the original 4-way, because the in-key routine in BASIC just lets you have 1 key at a time. So if you hold 2 keys, it doesn't register as 2. So he's using that technique for reading the keys simultaneously, so you can actually get the diagonals working. And he's using a different palette as an option here, so you can actually switch whatever colors you like. And it's basically a Missile Command style game, so I'll play a little bit of that. You can kind of see what that is. So you see the line drawing routine is actually fairly fast, and I think that was Greg Dion's work. Because there's no line function in regular MC10 Basic or the original Color Basic. The missiles are the purple dots coming down. The red is your cursor. The orange is the explosion. So basically it'll explode and then sit there for a bit. And if the missile hits that, then it blows up. And you got to protect your cities at the bottom. So it's basically Missile Command. I think, did he do an alternate? Yeah, and you have this color set too if you want to change it up a bit. I think I like this one better myself, but next up after that, we have Frogger in Basic. So Jim did an update to this one as well, featuring the new key input routine, like holding down the keys to keep jumping, some minor optimizations and speed ups, and adding a jump sound. So this one, I think he did a bit more recently, the original version. So this one just, has some improvements on it. Here it's drawing all the graphics out to kind of show things and some skill levels. And we'll let Nick critique this one since he did Jumping Joey, which is another Frogger style game. See what he thinks of it.
Not as good as a Neutroid, but yeah, pretty good. It's pretty good. Yeah, you said this is compiled, is it?
I think this one's compiled. No, maybe not. New key input routine, some speed ups, jump sound. So yeah, no, it's just state basic. This is not compiled.
Yeah, it's pretty good for a MC10 in basic. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's using, like, for the logs and stuff, I think he's using the same trick you used on your waterfall. Or was it waterfall? Where you're kind of doing mid-string of an entire pre-built string.
Yeah. And then you print just a part of the string.
Yeah, which is much faster than building it every time. Not a bad game. I mean, the MC10's got some, higher res stuff, like the 12896 mode that the MC10 supports if you have the 16K module, or one of the higher newer ones now. And of course you can modify, if you're into soldering and stuff, you can actually, put some extra RAM on the motherboard and actually get right up to payload 4. But for one of the low res ones, it's pretty good. Next up, I won't play too much out of these here. I'll just mention them. There's a lot of CoCo stuff. Like right now, Jeff's covering March of 1982. So I sent him a whole list of stuff here, and he's actually been kind of going through them all. So the first one here, he covers Card Games by Tandy, which is actually one of the few basic, written in basic games that Tandy sold, is by James Garon of Datasoft, 6 card games, mostly for kids. though poker and stuff, I probably would say it's not quite for kids. Color Computer Dancing Devil, which was the first machine language game / program that Chris Latham did. Later on, of course, he did Donkey King and Sailor Man. Cosmic Super Bowl by Spectral Associates, which is a very simple football game that is basically, I guess if you played the original handheld Mattel football from the late 70s, it's kind of like that on the computer. And then one I will show a little bit of here is called Amazing, because we were just talking about Maze Generation stuff here. And this is one that actually came off of, I think it was Chromaset. Right here.
'82, and this is Amazing for the TRS-80 color computer.
So it does a standard randomly maze thing, but it actually does a 3D perspective with filled in, and this is all basic. There's no machine language in here.
Our first release that came out at some point in March 1982. This one we're going to be running in basic. Amazing.
Now fast forward a bit here because it does take it a while to generate the maze.
I will perspective, or as they said in 1982, we thought several.
It actually has a point system here, so if you cheat and have to look at the map or your compass, which gives you what direction you're facing, you actually lose points.
Oh, now I remember. Now I forget what it was. It was like seeing the game through the eyes as if you were there. They didn't say first person. Okay, so we begin here. If we go F to move forward, we'll move forward, and we just creep along. The very beginning of 1982, we saw Monster Chase on the ZX81. They gave you the goal. I'm going to turn right. They gave you the goal of the monsters coming after you. And I would say that's the
No, obviously, this is a much simpler game than the one he's talking about there, which is, a world famous one. But for basic and doing filled in walls and hallways, as opposed to just the, standard wireframe that we're used to seeing at this time period, for a basic game, I thought this was actually quite good. He's obviously double buffering, so you don't get to watch it draw all the stuff and actually just plops the frame when it's finished rendering. But it's generating a frame in like a second. So I didn't think this was bad at all. I was wondering, what do you think, Alan, if you're still on the call? Since you actually were just researching maze stuff recently.
I love that version, by the way. Yes.
Have you tried this one before?
Yes. Yeah, the 3D view that looks like anything like Dungeons of Daggerath has always been on the radar.
This is a great place to pause. Look how you've illustrated the different levels that are visible. It's not quite so squared off as some maze programs were back then. Like you can see the right wall extends about 3/4 of the way down without having to have little defined cubes to show. It's very 3D.
The 3D part of this is really good, especially with the color cue, so that once you know your compass direction, you can keep up with it after that.
Yeah. And it actually has some audio pitches too. So every time you move a space, if you're getting closer to the exit, it raises in pitch. And if you start going away from the exit, it actually lowers in pitch. So you can kind of figure out, like sometimes you have to go away to get around a corner or something to get to the end. But it actually has some audio cues that you can try to use so you don't have to cheat, quote unquote, and lose points by either bringing up the map, which every time you do that's -5, or bring up the compass points, which draws a little N and WSE on the bottom middle to tell you what direction you're facing type thing. So I thought it was fairly well done. It was just, one of the magazine, Chromaset magazine tape games that came, you paid your subscription, you got a tape with 5 to 10 programs every month. It's just like, a Rainbow on tape or Rainbow on disc. And this was actually, I think, one of the first maze style programs that actually I was a bit impressed by. Because this came out in, March of 82, I guess. But, it came out way before Daggerath did, for example. And before, say, Phantom Slayer or even Escape by Ken Kalish, I think that came out then. Well, actually, I think that one might have came out roughly the same time. Actually, he covers it a little bit later, so we can show it if you want to see that. This next episode here, he went through the second issue of Electronic Games, and what they did in this particular issue, and this is a magazine I remember getting as a kid, because it was one of the very few video game magazines that actually covered the CoCo in its first, half month to a year of its existence. It actually covered it fairly extensively. It covered like football and Quasar Commander and skiing and Dino Wars and some other games too. So it was one of the few that actually, believed that something besides the Atari and the Apple existed, or the VIC-20. I tried to cover some other more I guess obscure might be too strong of a word, but some of the lesser known ones. But this one here, they actually had their awards for what they were figuring were the best games of 1981, because of course this is published in early '82, and Jeff kind of critiqued some of those. So they have categories for different types of games, whether it's an arcade or a home console or a home computer. And it was funny because Jeff, I can't remember which one they picked off the top of my head, but for the sports game for a home computer, whatever they picked, he was not that impressed. I think it was actually a strategy football game, like not even a real-time arcade style. It was one of the ones where it's like you're coaching and you get to, it's all more text-based. And his pick for the best game of 1981 for any sport game for any home computer out of all of them was skiing, because the 3D perspective in the hills in that one, and I agree with him, that one was so far ahead of its time, and ran in real time, etc. So and there's a few other ones where he picks a CoCo game really high up in the rankings and stuff there too. So it's a fascinating thing to see what people back in '82 thought were the best, and now what Jeff thinks in modern times after trying out all these different platforms and different games are. So that's a really interesting episode, and it basically almost the entire show is just going through this issue of Electronic Games Magazine and all the awards and stuff there. So definitely worth a listen or a watch. This next one here, he went through Escape by Ken Kalish, which is another 3D maze game, and I'll play a little clip of that because I want to mention something about the gaming graphics engine for it. And then Scepter of Kazurgla and Space Raiders. Now, Space Raiders was originally called Space Invaders when it was first released, and I've never seen a copy of the original. And Brian Bruder, who wrote it, actually was our guest as an interview guest here a while back. But basically, he tried selling it himself through what he called, I think, Space Cadet Enterprises or something like that for the first few months. But if you're a small independent, you're going up against, the upcoming Spectral Associates and Tom Mix and some of the people that already were somewhat established. He just didn't really have a hope of selling it much. But Mark Data Products actually saw the game and really liked it. And Rainbow announced in July of '82 that they were going to be taking over selling this game. And it took them a few months because they got them to tweak a few things, and they added their new splash screen and some music and stuff at the beginning. But it's one of the better Space Invaders games. Now, Jeff wasn't as keen on it as I would be, because he's trying to compare, all home computers at this time. And there had been, much more advanced Space Invaders games for, like, say, the Apple II and stuff, because they'd been around for, 5 years already. But basically, Scepter Kazurgla is kind of a semi-real-time. It's low-res graphics, kind of a dungeon romp where you have to try to get the scepter on level 13 of a dungeon. It's got a few interesting bits, too, like you can attack something with your sword, and your sword can get destroyed if just a random chance you get wrecked. You can also take out walls, which on later levels you have to, because sometimes you're trapped and you can't get to the exit to the next level. So you run into the wall and it says, you just ran into a wall. Do you wish to attack it? And you actually have to take out the wall with your sword. And that sometimes takes several hits depending on your strength. I thought that was a pretty interesting game mechanic, because having destroyable terrain was definitely not common in games of this early era. And then I want to show you a little bit of Escape. So let's see what that is.
We're next going to the TRS-80 color.
And this was actually one of the titles that was part of the Dragon's original launch, because this came out in March in the States, and then it was, I can't remember if it was Microdeal or if it was Dragon Data themselves actually brought it up for the Dragon. That's one of the launch titles, but it's using the same 3D engine basically as Phantom Slayer, which is one of my all-time favorite games of all time. We have covered that one on the Game On Challenge before. But this is basically more of a kind of an adventure style. You're wandering through a 3D maze. You can find these different little shops and things. You've also got an elevator that you have to get into, but you have to figure out a 5-digit code, and you get all these clues, and they're in the forms of like riddles and stuff. And you have to figure out the right 5-digit codes, because as soon as you type in the wrong number, the elevator plummets down to the ground and you die. So it's basically the adventure part is trying to figure out what this code is from all these clues. And none of the clues are obvious. It's not like, the first digit is 3. It's like they give you some, riddle or limerick or something like that you have to try to figure it out from. But the engine itself is very, if you've seen Phantom Slayer, you definitely recognize it. There are a few extra things in here like doors.
So
Like
this
here's the
is an
actual elevator
and
itself.
I don't know if I want to go. I guess we'll try the elevator. Oh, nice! I can even walk backwards. That's cool. But look how smooth this moves. Think of all the other maze games we played, or first-person perspective mazes. It's amazing. Oh, it was made in Texas. Oh, I see.
And
I
Jeff's from
gotcha.
Texas too, so that's why I
let's
told
go
him
in the
that on the show.
elevators.
But so here it's saying you're on the 609 automatic elevator. You must now provide the correct key, which is 5-digit number. And mistakes are not tolerated. So of course he dies because he hasn't solved any of them yet. But it's a hard game. Phantom Slayer actually to me is easier, and Phantom Slayer is not an easy game to begin with. But it was cool that Ken kind of came up with this and then decided to reuse the engine because it worked really well. And then the last one here was one he just recorded yesterday. So he rounded out, I think, the last CoCo game for March, which is Tower of Fear, which is a text adventure game with some MMO routines to prevent scrolling and inverse video and things like that. By Charles Forsyth for the Programmers Guild, which later did stuff like Pack Droids and Ninja Warrior, which Ninja Warrior we've definitely covered on the show. I don't think we've done Pack Droids. Ken, correct me if I'm wrong. I won't show that one because it's basically a text adventure game. It's one of the ones that's a bit more logical. Like a lot of these early text adventure games, some of the puzzles and stuff you have to solve make absolutely no sense whatsoever. You pretty well have to think like the original programmer did to figure out what the heck you're going to do. This is one that's more logical and more easily solvable with regular thinking patterns, rather than you have to remember you have to wave a statue of a snake to make a bridge magically appear, something weird like that. So it's one I greatly enjoyed and actually did win back in the day myself. So he's getting close to being done March. So April, there's some more CoCo games there. I've already sent him a list for April and May. I'm going to be doing an update to June. Then I'm going to take some time when I get far enough ahead of him to get back to all my programming projects here. But he's actually went through March a little bit faster than I was expecting. So I had to kind of double back and finish some stuff off. Okay, next up, we have a YouTuber that I've only actually found him recently. We've shown him on one or two previous episodes, named Geopopus. I'm not sure if that's pronounced correctly, down on the lower left here. But he made some videos this week of showing 3 different versions of Firefall. One is the pandemic version on the Dragon 32. That's John Linville's original. Now, the Dragon 32 one, I don't think had the version that he's playing there here does not have the sound chip in it that John made that extended version with multi-voice music and sound effects and stuff. So it's just basically the regular one. It does have some sound effects for the game itself, but it doesn't have the background music and stuff here. So I'll just play a couple clips of it here at the beginning so you can kind of see what the game is if you haven't seen it before. Because the next 2 versions are actually done by Jim Gary. One is the MC10 version that runs in 4K. And then Jim actually ported that back to the CoCo, so it kind of made full circle. So the 4K version's there. Of course, it's going to be much lower res, and actually, I think it's even text-based. And of course, Nick Marini's did one as well. And now your Waterfall game, Nick, did that work in 4K as well? I think it did, didn't it?
Yes. Hang on. Oh, I can't remember. It may have, yeah.
Cool. Digitized voice there too that John put in. You can recognize that's actually John's voice. So anyway, that's not the original because the digitized voice stuff I think he added on the pandemic version, but that's what the gameplay. And this gameplay is based on an Atari game. Is that right, Nick? I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, I forget the name, but yeah.
So anyway, since the MC10 did not have Firefall, Jim did do a port of it a while ago. So Geopopus is actually showing us that version as well. This is written entirely in BASIC, runs in 4K. Press enter to begin falling. That's a great way to start a game. But it's just basically text characters, and your little guy is walking between an X and a Y to make it look like his legs are moving. Now, there's some distortion. I don't know what was happening with his recording here, but the distortion on the sound happens at the beginning of the video, then it kind of fixes itself, and that happens on most of his videos. So I'm not sure if that's an emulator issue he had going or what. And then, of course, he backported it to the CoCo itself. A different pitch and a little bit faster. I think he's using the speed up hook here. So, but essentially, the gameplay is pretty similar. I mean, there's more platforms and they're all the same size, so that's a bit different than Firefall or Waterfall. But the essential gameplay of not getting run off the top of the screen or plummeting between platforms and dying on the bottom. Next up, Jerry Young, Pitfall Jerry is his YouTube channel, and he did a gameplay video for his haunted house for the MC10. This is originally from the book Computer Games to Play and Write from 1983, originally by Dan Eiseman. So Pitfall Jerry, Jerry himself here ported this over to the MC10 and shows you what it looks like. There's the source code listing. It's pretty small. And I'm not sure too much about the game itself. I've never played this particular one. And it's basically about ghosts, and you see their eyes, etc. And then the actual gameplay is going between these rooms and stuff here and finding the ghosts. So anyway, he typed that in. He's actually got it available. If you go through the notes here, the description, you can actually figure out where to get it if you want to give it a shot. Next up, we have Cuthbert. Oh, the only way is Cuthbert GA, which we've covered recently, again, because he's been doing these long play videos as opposed to the short ones he did a couple years back. He added a whole bunch this week once again. Most of them he has artwork, etc. He's even got Escape, the game we were just talking about from Chronologically Gaming there. And the gameplay he does here, he knows much more of what he's doing than Jeff was doing, because of course Jeff was just going in raw, never playing it before. So he actually goes and finds a lot of the clues, and he finds some of these different rooms with people giving him hints and stuff. So if you want to get a bit of the gameplay to actually learn how to win the game, it's not enough to win, but it's enough to at least kind of give you a clue how to find everything. And a bunch of others. I'm not going to play any of these here, but if you're interested in seeing the original artwork for the dragon on the tapes and on the cards inside the tape inlays, as well as the gameplay itself, he's even got some more modern games in here, like Glove. That was released in the 2000s, which is the Gauntlet style game for the dragon and the Coco. Stone Raider 2, which I think we covered on the show recently too. Wizard's Quest, not to be confused with Wizard's Den. Anyway, it's nice seeing the longer gameplay videos here, because it does get to show you some more later levels in some of the games, or a bit more advanced gameplay than just the quick 1 minute things he was doing earlier. Next up, we have Sibling Rivalry, AJ and Tim. And as I mentioned earlier in the show here, this is one they recorded just before the fest, I think the week before. And I'm not sure why it got rescheduled and released so late after the show, because they were actually at the end of the episode. They're talking about looking forward to meeting everybody at the show type thing. And of course, it's weeks afterwards. I will warn you, this one got a little bit risque on the double entendres. So be forewarned if that is going to bother you. It doesn't bother me. I think it's hilarious. And of course, we play Buzzworm, which is a clone of an arcade game. And right now, my brain just blanked on what it's called. But basically, it's the trailing tail thing where you have to go eat stuff in the maze.
Serpentine?
Yeah, is that the name of it in the arcade?
Oh, it was the Apple version. It was called that.
Because it's based on an arcade game originally. I've actually got it on my site. I probably should just go look it up. But one thing sorry, good.
Nibbler.
Yeah, thank you. That's it. Yeah, that's the arcade one. One thing I hadn't realized is actually it lets you enter in a pretty long name. You'll notice that AJ's full first name is actually up in the upper right corner, and I didn't realize it actually. I just thought it did the 3 characters type thing, but it actually lets you use a fairly large. And Tim is not too bad at it. He actually made it to some of the more bonusy stages. It's a fun game. I mean, the controls were a little bit wonky, if I remember. Ken, am I remembering that right? It was kind of hard to take the corners.
Yeah, you definitely had to push the direction on the joystick before you got to the corner.
Okay. I mean, it's a fairly simple game in concept. Eat little white things, and every time you eat one, your tail extends, and you can't chomp on yourself. So then later, when your tail's getting quite long, you have to navigate the maze so you don't trap yourself. It's a fun little game, and actually the maze designs, like the actual layout of the walls, etc., from the ones I've seen, the levels I've been on, are exactly the same as the arcade. So it's a really close clone as far as that goes. But I won't play too much of it here because, like I said, the double entendres are flying. I think this was heavy into the drunk sibling part of the show. But they were having fun. It's good fun. Next up, we've got Davey's Retro Corner now. He's actually in the chat, so if he wants to pipe up with any notes or tips or tricks or something on some of the stuff we're covering here, This first one here, one game he actually put on this week is City Bomber, which I'm trying to remember. There's an original game on the C64, the VIC-20 this is based on, where you're basically just flying a plane and you're bombing, buildings down, and you keep getting lower and lower on the screen as you wrap around. And this is actually based, as it shows here on the title screen, but for the audio listeners, written by John Sharp and David Bolton. Originally is type in from the book The Power of the Dragon, which is not a book I'm familiar with. So I'm kind of curious what else is in there. But he said this is his favorite game out of that book. And he's back, typed it all in and got it going. He did a couple minor modifications to it too. I think the title screen, I get that up there. No, it's there. 3 skill levels you can see there. It basically, I think, affects the speed and possibly the height you start at, and it kind of builds the city you have to bomb through. And you drop your missiles, and you have to clean that entire board off before your plane gets too low.
If you list the first 10 video games, this is one of them.
Oh, it is?
The whole concept of the decreasing thing running into the ground and bombing things is a very early game.
Yeah.
Now, was this originally in the arcade in the 70s? Is that what you mean by earlier? Or is this originally on an actual computer, but even before the arcades became popular?
Well, a video game that you could create on a home machine, this was one of the really first things you could do. And so there were a lot of games that were very similar to this because...
Yeah, I've seen there's a commercial version of this for the CoCo 1 and 2 that uses P Mode 4 graphics with artifacts.
So it would be, in any architecture, it would be very hard to pick who did this first because...
The one thing that this version does that I did not remember seeing on some of the other versions I've seen is actually the plane lands after you complete it. It actually lands on the ground and then slows down to a stop.
There's a wrinkle. If you can land, you're good, eh?
Yeah, I'll fast forward a bit so you don't have to wait for it to actually
It's like
get
Candy
all the way
Bomber
down.
on the Atari 2600.
Yeah.
So I remember at the time I had my 1K Sinclair, which was, way back. I wrote a sort of a version of this for the 1K Sinclair that fit in the upper left corner of the screen and bombed things on the ground. And this is what I was trying to write way back then. So.
And there you get it well done for completing it. And then the buildings get thicker and taller, etc. So, and now I'll switch over to the regular news. Let me just bring up the window. Okay, Ken, I'll just turn the volume down on this one if you want to kind of explain what this one's about.
Okay, well, after CoCo Fest, Curtis held me hostage and dragged me all over the United States. And we ended up in Knoxville, Tennessee, where we got a sneak peek at the Vintage Geek Museum. So he interviewed us for his channel, and me and Curtis interviewed him for our channel, or my channel. So just basically a little bit of talking about the museum and some shots of what you can expect if you ever are down there and what you'll get to see. And
I was going to try to find the spot where all the CoCos, where he's got that pseudo classroom set up here just to show, which we had fun with on his video he did of us playing with the electronic book.
Yeah.
You can see a TDP there, though, with a more modern keyboard. Even a wood grain TV is getting as close as they could to the original.
Is that?
It's a mix of TDPs, CoCo 2s, CoCo 3s, etc.
Big Radio Shack sign behind you.
Yeah, and they
got a
even had the
couple of
gift
those.
one. Yeah,
Yeah.
the gift one was one I had not seen before. Have you seen that before, Ken?
no, I hadn't seen that before.
I'm not sure where that is, just in case I want to show it to anybody else who wants to see it.
It's forward a bit in the video, near the end, I think. Oh, maybe not. I can't remember where I put it.
Apple stuff. But basically, it was like a Christmas promo where they actually had a Radio Shack gift, and it actually had like a picture of a present on it. Also, there's some quick introductions by the other people besides the public face of the museum, which is Aaron here, obviously. But he's got 3 other people working with him. He's got a videographer and a person that's kind of in charge of acquisitions and stuff, and a technical person that does a lot of the repairs, etc. So he's got full staff for this. It's pretty cool. And as we mentioned when we were showing Aaron's own video when he was interviewing us, they actually have officially opened to bookings in public as of May 1st. So if you're in the Knoxville, Tennessee area, you can actually go on their website and you can book an appointment. Their ultimate goal, as he explains in here, is that they eventually want to have, you can actually rent time out, not paying for it per se, but get time allotted if you want to try one of these old computers. Because the other thing that we mentioned before is that he wants us to be interactive, where people can actually try the computers out. You're not just looking at stuff under glass or anything. And if you want some obscure old computer you've never tried, but you actually want to try it for half an hour, he's actually planning on having it available, so you can actually book. I want to run a Chair City Model 1 for half an hour, or an Odyssey 1, or whatever it happens to be. And he's got some pretty weird old stuff in here, like that record player based thing from the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely go check that out on Ken's channel, Canadian Retro Things on YouTube. It's a good interview, and you get some background stuff of how he got the idea for the museum, where he originally planned on taking it, where it's going now, etc. And plus you get to meet some of the people that are also involved with it besides just Aaron himself. And I think it was definitely worth it. He even has a thing where if you want to become a supporter by chipping in a little bit of money, it's not a ton he's asking for, then you can get like admission to the museum for half price, etc. And they're still expanding. They're still getting stuff. I do know that Aaron and Jason Timmons from VCF Midwest have actually gotten in contact with each other. And once Jason finishes going through a bunch of stuff and he figures out what he's got extras of, Aaron already knows some of the stuff he's got extras of. And there's some stuff that are mutually, missing from each other's collection. So it sounds like they will be able to collaborate and actually fill in some of the gaps of stuff that they don't have between the two of them, so that both VCF Midwest and the museum, the Vintage Geek Museum, will get more in their displays than they would have otherwise. It looks like it'll be a good collaboration between the two of them. So and here's another one. Ken's been busy this week. He's helped host the Game On Challenge here, and then he's got 2 videos he cranked out here. So I'll let Ken explain this one.
Hey there. Yeah, basically proof I have no life. So I picked up the Quiet Click keyboard from Rick at CoCo Fest. So I put it into my other CoCo 3 here to try it out. And actually, I've liked it so much that I've actually switched the keyboards. The Quiet Click one now is now in my daily use computer, so that when I'm on the air and stuff like that, there's not quite so much clicking when I type stuff. So
yeah, I was going to ask you, like when you actually compared the volume, like you first did it from the mic when you still had it, with you sitting, and then you put the mic like right up to the keyboard, which I think was probably a little bit too close because it still sounds. Yeah. But like in real life, how much quieter is it? And maybe Rick, you can jump in here too for that.
Quite a bit. It's
I think his mic at a distance is the perfect capture of what other people hear. What you hear when you're typing it is quite different. If you like a clicky keyboard, the loud one sounds great when you're typing on it, but other people in the room with you hear what Ken's mic heard at that first comparison that he did.
Mm-hmm. I really just put the microphone that close to so that you could actually hear that the Quiet Click one is still clicking. It's not.
Yeah, it doesn't disappear like it.
Yeah.
No, it's a mechanical keyboard. It's going to sound like that.
So, I mean,
it definitely sounds different. I will say that. Like you can tell the difference.
Yeah, like right now I have the Quiet Click keyboard right beside me, and I'm pushing the buttons on it right beside my microphone.
Yeah, and I can faintly hear it, but it's not like that. Like I've got the Ed Snyder, the really clickable one too, like the loud version.
So I could actually confidently type on this one while I've got my microphone open and not worry that it's distracting. So,
okay. Sweet. So you're a happy customer.
I'm a happy customer. I mean, I like them both. Don't get me wrong. I love if I'm just typing stuff for fun. I like the sound of the really clicky one. But
DigiKey order. Get more switches.
I was going to ask Rick, like, since you've started offering both the original, like massive click or whatever you want to call the original, the louder one, and then the new quieter keys, have you noticed a trend either way as far as what people are buying from you?
Well, the problem is there's no word of mouth, so people like the clicky one because, yeah, I want a clicky keyboard. But do they really want a clicky one? Or is Ken
or that clicky
leading the leading a new path? We don't know yet.
Well, as
Just
soon as
let
I
us
get
know.
my 20%, we'll know how well it's doing.
Yeah, it's coming. It's coming.
Just let us know when they're back in stock.
Oh, they're in stock. If it ain't in stock, it'll be in stock tomorrow. I've got like 7 models, but I can go solder up any given one at any given time. So,
yeah, that's something we should mention because this doesn't just cover the CoCo 3 as pictured here. This covers CoCo 2 melted, CoCo 2 full travel, CoCo 1 chiclet, several of them, I think. Have you got every model covered now?
With a plastic pin. Yeah, they're all listed on my website, except for I don't think I'm going to formally release this one. I don't like the way it works. I don't.
All right, we can't see what you're showing here. So what?
Oh,
what you...
this is the melted plastic keyboard that is held together in the back with.
Here, I'll stop
melted
sharing so we can
pins.
see what you're talking about here for the
So,
stream.
I don't have a proper one in front of me. It's this keyboard.
Okay.
That doesn't have Mylar. That has Mylar and has plastic pins that are just melted to hold it together.
Is that the brown? It's got the brown phenolic backing.
Correct. Yeah, and I just don't like the way this works. I don't think I'm going to release it. I'm going to take care of a couple of people that help me get it built, and then we'll see where to go. But other than that one, as far as all the other chiclet keys and the melty key that has the melted back on it, and the CoCo 2 and 3 full travel, so I've got like six versions if you don't count clicky and not clicky. So yeah.
No, it sounds like Ken's a happy customer, and I was surprised he picked the quieter one as being his favorite. So I definitely want to try this out, and I didn't get a chance to try it out at the fest here. And I've always liked like the IBM 5150 keyboard, which is like one of the loudest ones known to man. Just
I wouldn't really say that I've chosen my favorite. It's like your kids. You can't really say which one's your favorite, but there's the one you would rather have out in public.
And the one that's more fun to
the one that you want to keep at home, and then there's the one that you're not
locked in the
ashamed of to have in
basement
public.
and feeding it bread and water.
I take this one to the park, I take this one to the library, It sounds like I have a cold. I've got to put some back feed into these headphones so I can talk properly. Sorry, folks.
Yeah, you sound fine to us.
Okay. So the next one here, Coco Town, which is that newer channel that he's been doing some stuff on, some graphic things he was doing. He's done stuff on, figuring out how to do cheat pokes and stuff like Donkey King. He's done a couple other little videos here, basically going through, some animations using steps of drawing lines, to get the moire patterns, etc. Now, I believe, if I remember correctly, this is not running real-time speed on the CoCo. He's actually saved the screenshots and then kind of made a video afterwards. I'm pretty sure it doesn't run this fast anyway. This beginning part's running at the regular speed, but
who is this?
CoCo Town's the name of the channel, and he was not at the fest. He just kind of popped up right after the fest happened, actually, just by coincidence. And he's been doing multiple CoCo videos a week, so I'm gonna have to invite him to get into the Discord here. I've chatted with him a little bit on the YouTube comments. I'll just fast forward a bit. Goes through a little bit of the coding of getting this to work. But these are like kind of nice screensaver style things. And he's using legally permissible music. But just some pretty neat patterns. Like I said, that's not running in real time. He's kind of like saving the screenshots and going. But if you wanted to see what a 50 megahertz CoCo 3 or CoCo 1 or 2 would have ran like. And then he did a sequel where he did some other pattern stuff here. They actually are kind of soothing, I have to say. And, the music he's picked in the background is kind of soothing, too. So it's a good way to veg out without having to go completely brain dead like you have to listening to the news all darn afternoon. Oh, I was hoping this would fix itself. Alan Huffman actually had an update on his blog, but unfortunately, it looks like WordPress is down for some stupid reason, or at least his version or his site on WordPress is. He had a blog entry about inverse video on the CoCo. He goes through the hardware options for it because there's a pin on the VDG that you can, I think you have to pull it out of the socket to force inverse video. And then also how to programmatically do it with the inverse video bit that the T1 VDG has. And then he also shows you how to do inverse the screen manually in a basic program. And then does his standard, a lot of basic optimizations to speed it up. And I think he managed to cut the original time down in half.
Hit the try again button.
Yeah, let's see what happens.
Yeah, I'm just getting the spinning dot at the bottom. I had the same problem this morning when I was setting things up. And I just looked at it yesterday. It was fine. So
is it because you have an Apple?
No.
That's it.
No, it's not because I accidentally had Neutroid running on this machine earlier either. So
someone will come in Monday morning and kick you with
that. Quick, someone grab a grease weasel to fix it.
Oh boy. Question from Salvador Garcia. I had to step away from a second. What was Rick Ulan talking about? Does he have a keyboard? If so, where can I get more info? And then Mark responded, and this is just for anybody else who's just listening. You can hit Rick's website at computerconnect.com. Computer Connect's all one word, and Connect is purposely spelt wrong with just one N.
And it's on the scroll on the show.
Yep. If you are watching, yes, that is true. I was trying to do that for the audio listeners.
They gotta watch.
Yeah,
it's highly recommended. We're a very visual show, but sometimes you just don't have a choice.
If you don't know where it is, it's where WeFax goes across.
Next up, we got Tier Say Retro Programming on YouTube. He's been working on the multiple games. He's doing that kind of Ultima style game in Basic, and he's also doing that Tales of Suburbia. And like Nick Marentes and some other people that, once you get really heavily into a game, you kind of get burned out for a little bit, or you hit a problem. And then you need to do a bit of a break. So we did a break here and just kind of spontaneously did animating an arrow in Basic going across the screen. So I'll just play a little clip of it. He kind of goes through the code and speeding it up, etc.
It could go a little faster if I took the timer out,
but basically just just a little side project just to experiment with some things that he wanted to try out, which I think a lot of us that do programming end up doing at some point. I know, Nick, you talked rather extensively last week about in fact, sometimes you just have to sleep on a problem. You can't keep hammering at it. Once you sleep, 9 times out of 10, all of a sudden the solution's there when you wake up. Your brain has had time to process it. And other times you just need a break and you do a side project like you did with Waterfall during, was it Gunstar you were working on at that time?
I think it was, yeah.
No, tell him it was Neutroid. Please tell him it was
Neutroid. No, please.
Well, Neutroid's always the answer.
Yeah. Neutroid's a side project he's been working on since 1984 and still hasn't gotten it right yet.
Some people that just joined us are going to wonder what
the hell is he talking about?
Really?
Yeah. Actually, honestly, Nick did it right the first time on the Model 1 and 3. That's still the best version of Neutroid. So if he can get the CoCo version working close to that, which is what he's working on with some extra stuff, I don't know if he wants to talk about yet, but actually, I think it will be vastly improved because it was a little bit too vague, I guess, on its principle on the CoCo version.
Yeah.
But you should really work on the other project more, I think. And I'm sure Ken would agree with me too, since he's one of the few that knows what that is. Now, we've also picked up some more CoCo Fest videos. Thanks to David Ladd, I think, found one of these for sure. I can't remember if this is the one you found, David. Actually, David, you found two, I think, if I remember correctly.
What did I do? I didn't do anything. You
found
got
some
the wrong
video-
person.
You found some further videos about CoCo Fest 2023, but not from the usual suspects. So the first one here is from the Wisconsin Computer Club. Now, I don't recognize the guy's voice, so I don't even know if I got a chance to meet him. I have no idea what he looks like. But I guess they sponsor their own show. The Wisconsin Computer Club does their own retro show, which covers multiple platforms. So you did kind of a comparison as well as taking screenshots pictures of the show floor, et cetera, for CoCo Fest. But he was kind of comparing how we do stuff compared to how they're doing stuff. And their show's much younger. Obviously, Glenside's been doing the CoCo Fest, since 1992, along with, Dave and Nancy Myers from CoCo Pro the first year and then on their own after. And they also helped with the Rainbow Fest organization from what I remember when Rainbow Magazine was the main sponsor. So they've been doing it for, almost the entire length of the CoCo itself. 40 years as of this past one that just went by. So I'll play a little clip of this here, but does anybody, if you guys recognize the voice, did any of you meet this person and talk to them at all?
Hello, Alex here, and today I want to talk a little bit about CoCo Fest, CoCo Fest 31.
His name's Alex, if that
is,
rings a bell with anybody.
23 edition, and just the show, what it was like to experience it. This is my first year going. Every other time I've tried to go in the past has either been stymied by COVID or my crazy work schedule. So I got this little reprieve that I could go today.
Yeah, all I know is that the one photo of where I was at, the photo makes me look fatter.
What I saw, explain kind of
that one?
Yeah, a little squished.
And how that kind of translates over to the Wisconsin.
Yeah,
Computer
John,
Club
not flattering
and
for
how we
John
do
either.
things. It was really just
Any of us,
really
actually.
enlightening,
Yeah,
encouraging experience.
I'm not too bad because I'm way in the back corner. You can just barely see my head.
Dive
So.
right on in here. I've got a whole bunch of photos to share with you, so I'll just.
But does anybody recognize the voice? Because he went around and apparently
This
from
is a
his
really
description, he
good
actually did
show.
talk to a few people at the show. I don't recognize the voice, and I was, sometimes I was in seminars, etc. So I just might have missed him, but I
No,
don't.
not at all.
His name Alvin.
No.
Well, his name's Alex, I think he said.
Oh, Alex.
That's which is too bad. I mean, if they had another, a computer club there that does retro, I would have loved to, talk to him about that and maybe see what their show's like.
And since I live in Milwaukee, yeah, maybe, but I never caught the guy.
Okay. And I'm trying to, like, from looking at the pictures here, I'm trying to figure out if he was there on the Saturday or the Sunday. I think it looks like the Saturday, but I'm not positive.
I can tell if I see my shirt.
It was Saturday. David Ladd wore yellow, optic yellow on Saturday and orange on Sunday.
Ah.
Mark, are you paying attention to my wardrobe?
Who? Me? No.
Because he has to change the sunglasses.
Can't miss it.
But he got some really good photos and stuff there. And like I said, he mentioned that he talked to some multiple people. I was just wondering if anybody on the panel that was there as well, I remember talking to him. Something might happen to him come on the show and talk about his club too. I mean, like you mentioned, Rick, you're in Wisconsin, and Wisconsin's like right next door to Illinois. So depending on where in Wisconsin, that might be something that some of the people in Chicago area could hit up.
Kind of right next door to Milwaukee too. So yeah.
And Brother Jeremy used to be there too. That's something I was discussing with Sean Driscoll, who was in the chat earlier, because he was good friends with Brother Jeremy, because Brother Jeremy actually added on to the GUI B library after Sean finished working on it. And he was in Racine, Wisconsin.
Right. He was a good intermediary. He came up here for the Offnahawk, the occasional Friday night OS9 hanging out club. And then he also went to Chicago to catch all of the Glenside stuff. So we exchanged a lot of things through Brother Jeremy back then.
If he still has the CoCo in his blood, he's probably watching this
somewhere.
Just come on the show.
And of course, that's a good view of, was a good view of Paul Fiscarelli's Tandy sign.
Yeah. But yeah, I'd be interested to maybe get in contact. So if he's watching this, if he hears that he's been featured on here, love to get him in contact with us and maybe have him on the show for a bit and talk about the Wisconsin Computer Club, because that's not one I was even aware of before. And it sounds like, Rick, you weren't either.
No, I'm almost there.
Anyway, there's some really good photos he took there of the show floor and some of the various projects and booths too. Next up, this is one that I think, David, this is another one you sent me. And I'm trying to remember
possibly.
who did this one. Trying to remember who did this one here, because basically it's a quick less than 3-minute video about the Folk Coco Fest, which has a custom song, which I think you described as a little bit odd. And also some live singing from Taylor, Amy, and AJ, of course, from the Saturday Night Jam session. I'll play a little clip of it. I'm not going to play the whole thing here. It's got some photos and stuff as well. I have no idea if this is legal music, so I'm going to stop it there. But yeah, it does a little bit of like just random clips of some Coco stuff, and then shows the Taylor and Amy show along with AJ during the jam session, and then kind of goes through some of the booths, just doing stock photos. I think this is one of the guys from Brazil or Colombia or something, I think is the one that did this.
Yeah, I think so.
The music sounded like it would be.
Yeah. So it's kind of interesting, a little bit of a different presentation of covering a Coco Fest than I think I've ever seen before. So it's interesting just to see a different perspective of it, I guess. And this is one I just kind of stumbled onto by accident. So somebody named Retro Dream on YouTube did a kind of a 3D animated timeline going through early home computers here. So I've got it fast forwarded right now to 1980, which is when the Coco 1 came out. Now there's some obvious mistakes. You can see that that's a Coco 2 colored case. And it kind of the Coco 2 case itself, that it has a chiclet keyboard kind of. I'm not quite sure. So I don't know if they're trying to mix things up. There's no mention of the Coco 2 or the Coco 3 in this, so it's a bit incomplete. And I noticed some mistakes in some other things, like they have the Dragon 32 and 64 in there, but they had the sales figures as being a total of 50,000, which is way, way low from what the actual was.
Yeah, it says that continued in 83.
Well, the Coco 1, that is true, because the 64K color computer, the white melted keyboard one, did end the line of the color computer 1. The Coco 2 came out in 83 and kind of took over.
But
they don't.
It had 512K RAM.
Yeah, that's wrong, because that's Coco 3. They're saying 256 by 192 is 16 colors. Well, no, that's wrong too.
Yeah, it's all
256 by 192 is the
conflated.
right res, but it was like 2 color or 4 color with artifacting. 4-voice sound only if you added in extra hardware. I like the concept though. I'll just play a little bit here. I mean, obviously some of the facts are wrong, and he obviously knows some of their computers better than others. But the way he has it kind of, I don't know if this has copyrighted music either. There's no text to be heard, but he kind of does a sliding thing. He actually has screenshots on the monitors of actual software from those particular platforms, which is kind of cool. So the presentation is really well done. I really liked it. And you can pause it whenever you want to check out some certain things, even as you can jump to a year on the timeline here if you want to check out a specific year when something is released. But factually, there's
wood grain on the monitor too.
Yeah. Yeah, he's trying to get everything basically is, proper for the time period and for each of the machines. But there's some obvious mistakes, and I think the TRS-80's probably suffered a bit more than some of the other ones here, probably because, the Coco isn't as well known as, say, a C64 or a VIC-20. But it's a nicely done presentation. Here you can see the Dragon here. So this one factually is a bit better. 32 to 64K, that is correct. 256 by 182, 4 colors, that's technically correct with artifacting. 1 voice sound, correct. But units sold is 50,000. That's not even close. There was 350,000 at least of the Dragon 32 alone that I know of, and at least 50,000 of the Dragon 64. So I mean, there's 400K. That should be, if not a bit higher, just by going through the serial numbers that everybody's contributed to the World of Dragon archive. And that's not including like adding the Taino Dragon or the Spanish version, the Urhard version of the Dragon, etc. That's just doing the ones from Wales. But like I said, he had some inaccuracies, some other ones, and some other people were pointing out, whatever their favorite platform was, any mistakes there. So he's aware of it. But the presentation is what I wanted to really show off here. The factual part's not quite accurate, but I just like the way he set this up as it kind of scrolling through time. Next up, Yagi Boat, and I think I've covered one of his videos a long time ago on the news here, but he did a video here getting the backbit cartridge for his CoCo 2. Now, we've covered that cartridge on a couple of times on the show because originally the person that does them, I can't remember her name off the top of my head, sorry, but she made this kind of generic cartridge that can do disc images and cassette images, etc., for a variety of retro platforms. And basically, they have this one thing called the backbit, which is the black thing you can see on the right here if you're watching the video, that actually you plug an SD card into and it can pull off all those things. And you have these little adapters that you can then plug into the backbit that then plug into your retro machine. So that's the CoCo one, particularly shown here, but you can also get stuff for C64, Atari 400, 800. And basically this exact same master cartridge, you just swap the SD cards out, will work on any of these retro platforms. You buy that piece of kit once, and then you buy these much cheaper adapter cards to adapt it to plug into the cartridge slot of these other machines. So if you're one who has a lot of retro machines, like actual physical hardware retro machines, and you want a solution for doing virtual discs and virtual cassettes, etc., but don't want to spend like 80 to 90 bucks on every single, SD card solution for each of the individual computers, this is a much cheaper way to do it, where you just get these little adapter cards for like $20, $30, and you have the one main cartridge that you buy once, and then you just swap SD cards as you go. So I know when they first released it, they only had the ROM pack cartridges and cassette. She wasn't even aware that the CoCo had, disk drives, and I said, well, it's kind of required for stuff like King's Quest 3, etc. She didn't know the CoCo 3 had any of that capability either, so she added that back on. And I think she was actually going to add hard drive, like VHDs, so you could even run like Nitrous 9 stuff off this. I can't remember if she's released that yet or not. I haven't actually checked her page in a while, so I'll have to go back there and find it. But if you want a bit of a review of the cartridge as it runs in the CoCo 2 and explaining how the whole, adapter cards work, this is a pretty good review of it, and he actually demonstrates it and runs a few things off of it as well. And of course, the links to all of these will be in the show notes in the news summary section on our CoCo Discord, which is free for everybody. Oh, that was nice. Next up, I had not seen this before too. T Public. I'm not sure if that's this particular one, which is a Mr. CoCo sticker. I don't know if anybody here is involved with that, or Alan, that wasn't your daughter. Your daughter's not involved with this, I'm presuming.
If she was, it'd be news to me because I've never seen it.
Okay. Because of course it says, it's designed and sold by Puppy with 3 Ps, which I have no idea who that is. And they're showing here it's like $3.42 Canadian for the sticker, which is fairly cheap. I'm imagining the shipping is probably going to cost more than that. No, don't use UPS. But
that's how you really feel.
Yeah. I can't do that. We're a family show. We're still not willing to refund any money yet. Still fighting with that.
Of course not. We delivered them.
Yeah. Don't give me that. Anyway, I thought it was kind of interesting to see this. I was wondering if there was anybody here doing this, or anybody that any of us knows that's doing this, or if it's just completely out of the blue from somebody else. So it's still a mystery because it doesn't sound like any of you have any idea where this comes from.
It's a bad copy of a Tandy Manual or something.
Yeah, I mean it's basically, I think, exactly what it is. I think it's taken right from the one of the Tandy Manuals, probably CoCo 2 manual.
Yeah, it's one of the later ones from the style.
It looks like the guy from that juice commercial from the 60s.
Oh, but you can stick it on your Mac and be cool.
Well, it covers the Apple logo, which a lot of you would like, so.
Okay, I'm sold.
I just thought it was interesting because it seems to be a little bit more and more of people from outside the core community seem to be coming in and kind of, getting stuff out CoCo related. So that's cool.
$600 CoCo 3s.
Yeah. Yeah, they're expensive now on eBay. Holy cow. Next up, and I think Michael Furman is still in the chat, Mikey. So this is part 2 of his vlogs he's doing on Flex. So last time he just kind of went through the history of Flex and the various versions of Flex that came out for the CoCo. So what he's got here is he's got the Frank Hogg Labs version of Flex, version 5, and goes through doing editing and assembling and a little bit of actually doing a few things within the actual operating system itself. It's 20 plus minutes. So I'm not going to play it. I'll play this little intro here, which actually has him like screwing up a few things, which he kind of fixes as when he gets to the main part of the video, but it's kind of the teaser. So I'll just play that. You can kind of get a flavor for it, and the rest you'll have to go watch.
Okay, now that the assembling is done, let's see what happens if we try to run this now. Still
Bang.
completely broke it.
That's a good teaser. I broke it. But he goes through the editor assembler. He goes some of the syntax you need. Like, for example, you saw there, you put the drive number first, followed by a period, followed by the file name, period, extension. Now, a little known secret on the disk extended basic for the CoCo is that you can actually use the drive number : the file name. Most of us followed the manual, which I think does it the other way around. It has the file name with :0 or :1, depending what drive you're doing, but it actually works on either end. Which somebody else pointed out to me not too long ago, within the last couple of years, and I had no idea because I haven't really gone through the Unraveled series on the disk basic because I hate disk basic. It's too low level and it sucks compared to OS9. So anyway, enough of my soapbox.
I think Tristos on the Model 1 had it as drive
and CPM does too, doesn't it?
Oh, does it? Yeah.
I think. I haven't used CPM in decades, so I don't really remember.
I wonder where the word colon came from.
Ask David.
Only Ron would ask that.
Isn't it kind of weird?
They are spelled differently if you're talking about the two different.
Well,
yeah,
pronounced the same.
I mean, if you're listening to this on radio, you know.
What if it was disk basic ease of use, Curtis? David Lord in the chat put that in.
But he does a pretty good run through here, and he's running XOR, as you can see, Mac version, by the way. He actually goes through and shows there's different screen widths. Like you can see, it's running a graphics screen right now. That's why you get the smooth scroll. It defaults to, I think, the 42 by 24, but it's also got 51 and 64 characters as well. So it kind of shows you the commands to do that. You can actually see a little bit. So if you've never used Flex before, you get a few hit tips and tricks you can use here to try it. And it's definitely more advanced than Disk Basic, and it had a pretty good software market. There was hundreds of programs done for Flex. Some were CoCo specific, and some were more generic to any Flex system, because Flex was actually on the 6800 series, on the 6809s. It came out a couple of years before the CoCo itself did. So it's an interesting bit of history. The OS9 ended up winning out as of the CoCo 3 coming out, because that added windowing and a bunch of things that Flex never caught up with. Though there was a multitasking Flex called, what the heck was it called? Uniflex or something Flex?
Yeah, Uniflex.
No, it was Flex EOU.
Well, I've never seen a GUI on Flex, at least not that I've ever seen. So they're not quite caught up yet.
We even have a Flex channel on the CoCo Discord. It's in the operating systems area.
Yeah, actually, James Jones just mentioned it. Yeah, Uniflex is the multitasking version of Flex. Now, next up here, Shauner, which if you were in the chat or monitoring the chat when we started the show, was in the chat. I don't know if he still is. I haven't seen anything from him in the last little bit. He might have got bored or fell asleep or something here. But that is Sean Driscoll, the author of Shanghai Basic 09, the author of Stranded Out of Gas, which is a text adventure game that uses the graphics windows with his GUI-B library to draw nice little outline 3-dimensional borders around the different parts of the adventure game, like description of the room, your inventory, your command line interface part of it. And of course, Brother Jeremy helped with that and was a big proponent of GUI-B, which I actually have the source code for it now. So I'm going to fix a few things because there's a few changes that I've just done over the years in the graphics primitive routines in specific that have changed the algorithm a little bit. So some of the stuff like bullets, round bullets, and the diamond shaped bullets don't quite draw properly now. So since I have the code for source code for GUI-B, I will be going to fix that. There's also a few things that can be optimized better now. Like we have filled circle and filled ellipse. When you're drawing round bullets and stuff, you can actually do it a little bit faster. if you just change it, because he had to originally do it by drawing the circle itself and then painting in with the fill command, the outside circle and then the inside circle for the bullet. So he kind of goes through here a little bit. He hasn't had his CoCo system since 1997, as he mentions in the video here, which I will mention is over half an hour long. But it kind of goes through his history with the CoCo 3 and stuff. And he kind of compares it with what other GUIs were out at the time. So he's got like the Atari ST Gem, I think it was called, and Amiga and some of the stuff on Unix and Windows, etc. But I'll fast forward a little bit here. So he's trying to mention that he's trying to duplicate some of this onto the CoCo. And he actually has a picture, one of his few surviving pictures of his old CoCo system from back in the day. So he's got the CM8 RGB monitor. He's got a CoCo 3 with a dust cover. Even his floppy drives have a dust cover. Multi-pack interface with an RS-232 card, plus the floppy controller itself, and a modem that's kind of off screen.
Not seeing the 501 dust cover. That's cool.
Yeah.
A new thing.
Now, he said he might be doing a follow-up video to explain why he got rid of all of his CoCo equipment in 1997. I'm kind of curious myself, so hopefully he will follow up on that. But yeah, he kind of goes through it, and he actually found the video that I'd done doing a speed comparison of different versions of the Nitrous 9 drivers back in the beta days, and kind of goes through a little bit of it here because that's basically his code running on as part, as included in the OU. So I will play just a little clip there so you can hear his dulcet tones as he's talking about it. But I'll let you go to watch it on his page.
Introduced every time I re-record over. Okay, so here we go. So this is I don't remember if I call this GUI B or GUI B. The B means basic, because I wrote the GUI in BASIC. In BASIC 09, which came with OS 9 Level 2, that was my favorite language of all time. Of all time. BASIC 09.
Good man.
You can go to the wiki page and look up BASIC 09. You can find the language there. It probably has not aged well, I'm guessing.
Actually, I don't think it's aged too bad, honestly.
Years ago,
especially on retro systems.
Carved, framed pick frame.
I wanted to fast forward to where some of these
pick frame
draw discrepancies start cropping up. So here you can see the bullet is kind of stretched a bit, and the diamond's got this weird thing here. Now that is because there was a change done to the Nitrous 9 graph driver in the 2010s, I think it was, or maybe the late 2000s, that made the drawing algorithm more accurate mathematically. But the problem is there's been software written for the previous 15 years that were based on the old one. And yeah, it may be more accurate, but it did break a few things. I mean, this is just a visual break, like it doesn't look right, but it's not fatal. But I did hit stuff like the Qbert game was trying to draw all those little squares, the isometric squares for the Qbert game, and because of the new line drawing algorithm, a few of them didn't connect properly. So when it went to go fill them in when you jumped on a square, it leaked out and painted the whole darn screen.
Oh, gee.
So that one I patched that particular game itself, and I haven't seen any glitches like that in Sean's programs that I've got on EOU, which is the Stranded Out Gas and the Shanghai BO9, Basic 9. But this is one place where visually you can definitely see it. It screws up. The bullet's not quite drawn right, and the diamond definitely is not. If I remember correctly, the 6809 or 6309 version, because that was using algorithms I did before based on the original Tandy ones, I think those still draw right. I think this is a 6809 version that kind of glitched it a little bit. But I mean, he was quite far ahead of his time for coming up with a decent one that actually went way beyond what Multiview had, as far as like Multiview doesn't even have buttons like that. Anyway, he's got the scroll bars here that actually have a more Unixy look, I guess is probably the best way to put it, rather than the very plain look. The original Multiview is very, very plain. And even EOU right now is not that fancy. And I don't have all these different types of window raised bars. You can draw them manually, obviously, but he's got like etched and carved in a pick frame and framed and raised and popped and pushed and outlined and filled, etc. So he actually pushed it quite far, and he actually uses this in the Shanghai Basic 9 And he had some other games he mentioned too, which once he mentioned them in the video here, I remembered them from being back on, Delphi and CompuServe back in the 90s. I'm gonna have to find those and put those on EOU2 and see if I have to patch any of those. But if you want a history of the GUI B project itself and John's history with the CoCo 3 and OS9 Level 2 and Basic 09 with him, it's an excellent video. And he's actually planning on doing some follow-up videos. So like I said, he was on the chat earlier. I invited him to pop in. So if we can get him back on, I wouldn't mind getting him on for an interview to kind of go through his history too. But I'll let him kind of catch up because he hasn't really thought about the CoCo since '97, and he still does a lot of graphic three-dimensional work nowadays on modern platforms. So I don't know if he probably doesn't want to get back in the hardware at the very least. He may, maybe want to tickle the itch with some emulation stuff later on or something. But I would love to have him on to talk about it, but I'm gonna have to let him finish catching up and remembering what all he did back in the day because he cranked out quite a bit of stuff in the late 80s, early 90s. I remember seeing a lot of it on the OS9 and even the CoCo Echoes on FidoNet because he had the local club he was with had Warren Hrack. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing his name right, but he was one of the main rib sysops that did the whole FidoNet running stuff on CoCo's. Bill Noble was involved with that, Charles West, Ron Byler, and a bunch of others. So see if we can arrange that later on. And I have to agree with James Jones. The man has good taste. Exactly. Okay, next up, we've got an update from Luciano Scharf. So we covered another Brazilian retro show recently that I think happened the weekend after CoCo Fest, and this is yet another one. And this is from the 11th annual Retro SC, which is a multi-platform event that took place in, I don't know how to pronounce this, Blumenau in Brazil on May 13th, which had some CoCo and CP400 representation. So I'll just kind of through some of the pictures. There's not a ton of them, so it shouldn't take too long. You can see the CoCo 3 is running Z89. I got some CP400s here with both versions of the keyboard, the chiclet style and the later style as well, as well as some other clothes as well here. And you can see, was that Shock, the Shock Trooper? That's Tomb. I think it's Shock Trooper. And getting the young ones involved, which is something we saw at CoCo Fest too, which is really nice to see because let's face it, we're not getting any younger, so we have to get some young blood in there to keep the flame alive. Zaxxon in the P-Mode 3 color set, which just looks wrong to me, but I mean, if you had PAL, it's probably better than black and white. There's some of the other clones running Tuts too. Prince of Persia, which actually we have the full intro demo music and all from Paul Fiscarelli that was released as a bit of a demo recently. I don't think he has any plans to finish that, unfortunately, which is too bad because it looks pretty awesome.
It's great.
Pestered him about it. We just got to keep asking.
Yeah, I think we should even try to bribe him. I just don't know with what.
I agree with that. Prince of Persia was a fantastic game. Jordan Mechner's stuff, both his games were fantastically done. He used movie type techniques to do the motion capture and stuff.
Yeah, rotoscoping or whatever he used for his brother running across to do the animation for him.
Yep. His first one, Karateka, used basically 8mm film, and then Prince of Persia used VHS. But yeah, he rotoscoped the stuff. I mean, one person doing such a fantastic job. It's like, whoa.
Yeah, and he filled every byte of the Apple II version for, I remember, like he had no free RAM left at all.
Maybe he'd respond to a bag of 20s.
I was hoping to bribe him with chocolate bars. As long as I don't ship him UPS, it should be fine.
Yeah, gee. Imagine shipping those out here to Arizona.
We'll figure out his weakness, then we'll exploit it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Look at that black one.
Yeah. Yeah, and you can see some of the original color-coded joysticks for the CP400 there with the different colored handles. There's Dragonfire running on a... Which one is that? Codemex. Codemex 6809. Oh. There's a 64K RAM test program. I mean, Sailor Man. Now, they've got this here, and it says ProSoft, and it's got a CP400 below it, so I'm not sure if they're related, but is that what the software packaging looked like for the CP400? Because that almost looks like Dragon level, full color covers and stuff like that with some pretty decent artwork.
Well, it looks like it.
Pretty well attended shows you can see here. Looks like a school gymnasium or something. There's Time Bandit with the artifact colors reversed.
The spooky trees.
Yeah. And this looks like a custom keyboard. The space bar is a little too small for me. I don't think I can handle that.
Right.
And the break key on the left is kind of weird.
Although I like the translucent keys with the letter inserts.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, it does say CP400 on the circuit board here, you can see on the right-hand side. So this is a design for the CP400 specifically. Here's the back side of it.
Oh, cool. So instead of doing any kind of fancy thing, they just put two keys side by side and said, there's your break. With one cap over the top of both of them.
Yeah. And they actually have labeled all the keys too, so you don't have to like try to figure out what traces go to where if you kind of forget or don't have a second one to look at. And this one, they're showing it through some like glasses or something. Is that a VR style thing where you get to play it right up in your face, playing Tetris?
It's got to be.
I'd love to play Phantom Slayer this way, like what's his name? Ben Drakes did in England, where he actually had the full VR gear with the walking treadmill and all that stuff to play Phantom Slayer. This would be a much cheaper second way to do it, I think.
Shame. He lives in Wales.
Oh, is it Wales? Oh, sorry.
Yes.
Home of the Dragon. How could I forget that?
Exactly. Sorry, Ben.
And here's that keyboard, or a bit of one of the odder keyboards in CP400 with the case open, like Brian Weezer had at the show at CoCo Fest. Look at the circuit board from ProLogica.
Oh, and if you flip back to the previous photo, that thing that's sitting on top there with the USB flash drive stuck into it, that's a GoTech board.
Yep. So it's right up there. GoTech system.
Okay.
And a USB stick instead of a SD card, or does it accept both? Oh, this must be the SD.
No, the GoTech uses a USB flash drive. And that's an OLED display that's to the left of the flash drive.
Nice. Okay.
Come on, Curtis.
I'm glad I have knowledgeable people to correct me. Because this stuff I don't know much about.
Even I know that.
When it comes to hardware, I know nothing except how to solder my
make
hair.
Curtis feel small.
Oh no, when it comes to hardware, I fully admit I'm an idiot moron.
Don't forget to give him a good soldering iron.
No, I might injure myself seriously if I did that. Now, this one he's actually captioned here a bit. So it says, and I don't know how to pronounce this, Severino CV Jr., which presented some modifications for the CP400 color. For example, the internal installation of the CoCo STC and 502 and GoTech. So that was all fitting inside the case. Keyboards with cherry or Alp switches and the use of virtual reality glasses. So this seems like a pretty interesting guy to talk to. Unfortunately, I don't know if he knows English. There's Zaxxon and P Mode 3 and glasses.
So that makes it P Mode 3D.
Ha, ha, ha.
You tee them up, I'll swing at them.
Actually, got a video here of a kid playing it, so let's see.
Olha aí, pessoal. Gustavo jogando Zaxxon em realidade virtual. Coisa desse nosso amigo aqui, ó, Severino. Valeu. Olha aí, pessoal.
Maybe that looks cool. If any of the people that can come up to one of our shows and bring this along, I would love to try this. I probably couldn't try for too long because I tend to get motion sickness with virtual reality stuff, but I'd like to try it at least once. And back to the beginning. So thanks, Luciano, for posting all those pictures there. It looks like a pretty good show. Next up, we have Paul, and I'm hoping I'm pronouncing your last name correctly here, but pardon me if I'm not. Paul Ripke. So he posted in the CoCo Facebook group. He made an assembly language version of Conway's Game of Life, and he did this during COVID. And he's got multiple versions of it run anywhere from the lower graphics mode, like the 64x32 set reset graphics, all the way up to P mode 4, the couple in between. And because it's assembly, it's fairly fast. I haven't compared it with, say, Sock Masters or Alan DeCock, who also did some assembly language versions of it back in the late 80s. But this is all publicly available on his GitHub. So he mentioned this on the Facebook and the CoCo group. And if you want to go to his GitHub, once again, you get that from the show notes. He's got all the source code here, and he's got both EdTASM and LWASM friendly versions of it, and of the various resolutions as well. So you can go download it if you want to give it a try, or even look at the source to see how he did it. This is one Mr. Dave reminded me. I missed these because he sent a flurry of 3 videos last week, and I only saw the latest one. The other one had scrolled off, and I kind of thought I'd already caught up, so my mistake. My apologies to Dave. So these are basically some tutorial videos on how to modify machine language games that are written for P mode 4 artifacting to switch them back to a P mode 3 style screen. So you can get color on a PAL machine, even if it's not technically the right colors, or you can actually set the palettes on a CoCo 3 or a CoCo VGA equipped system to get the colors closer to what they would have been with artifacting. So these are each over 10 minutes long, so I'm not going to play them here, but he's got one here particularly that tells you how to go through and just, figure out how to change the VDG setting to do P mode 3 instead of P mode 4, and some techniques of finding that part of the machine language code using a debugger or something. And then he did a second follow-up video here of how to change it, from within BASIC, using only BASIC without using a debugger, etc. And you can see this one here has actually got a screenshot on the title card showing Demon Attack. And he's got the RGB standard version here. Like if you put it on a CM8, this is what it would look like. Straight black and white, and then he's patched it and then set the palettes appropriately to simulate what the original would. Now, it's not perfect. There's some of the subtler shades you cannot get using this technique. It just does the basic core 4, black, white, orange, blue. But it's definitely better than nothing. And some games were designed kind of with that in mind anyway. So some games actually work perfectly. Others, like, Sailor Man or Donkey Kong, that actually kind of do a mix of the artifact colors plus treating this parts of the screen as 256 by 182 black and white. Those will not look perfect. They'll have some fraying colors around the edges of some of the white details, but some of them will work really well. So if you want to learn how to do this yourself and patch some games that you really want to see in color on an RGB monitor, check out Mr. Dave's videos on his YouTube page. Next, we have another one from Davies Retro Corner. I don't know if he's still in the chat or not. But this is ported from the ZX81, and it's drawing a sphere. As he shows here, he did the port in May of 2023, so he just did it like in the last few days, really, the last couple of weeks. And it kind of keeps drawing, so it's drawing it, in BASIC with set reset graphics. So it's kind of almost like a little slow screensaver type thing. And it, eventually draws a bit more of a 3D sphere. And then it starts changing the colors and redrawing it. So it kind of makes a nice little background graphic you can have running as a screensaver. Next up, Robert Segan. He posted this particular one. He's posted a few things over the last week here on both the MC10 group on Facebook and, in this case, the 6847 group on Facebook, which, of course, is the video display generator chip in the CoCo and the MC10 and the Alice and the VZ200 and a few other machines as well. But he's been working on the equations here, and he's working on this a few years back, but he's actually got it working better now. Of converting, modern full color photos or pictures or graphics to fit the 128 by 96 by 4 color graphics mode that the MC10 has. And this particular one, for those that were listening in the audio, he's got a picture of Angelina Jolie, an actual photo, and then what it kicks it down to. Now it's not obviously perfect with only 4 colors and fairly low res, medium res, I guess I'd call it, but it's somewhat recognizable. So actually it works pretty good. And he's probably going to use this for basically creating graphic images for like adventure games, etc. without having to like manually draw everything using modern tools and modern pictures and graphics as a source. Okay, next up we got a couple on the Dragon here. So David Mitchell, once again, this is a non-game thing. So this is a program called Weave, originally by Dr. Tim Langdell. And this is a type-in book as well from the book 35 Programs for Dragon 32. And this book had general programs of various kinds, including some games and stuff. It's meant to be kind of just a graphics demo, and it does repeating patterns, but it kind of makes it look like, especially when it does the denser versions, it makes it look like a weave, like a latch hook rug or something like that. So you can use this as also a bit of a screensaver here. So you can see a drawing, in one particular resolution here. I'm mixing 4 colors up on the P13 screen. I'll fast forward to a different pattern or density. And it almost looks like it's drawing arcs here. So it comes up with some pretty interesting little patterns. This one looks more like a rug style thing. It almost looks like a latch hook color guide if you've ever done any of those. So it's been good. He's been taking some of these books that I don't think had versions on disc or tape that you could purchase at the time. So he's actually been typing these in and debugging them himself to make sure they work and then putting them up and you can actually download them. So he's got several books on the go, it looks like. And he can correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like he's probably going to finish these books off and then we'll actually have versions of these books, like 35 programs in this particular book's case, as kind of quote unquote new software for modern times, without us all having to type them in and debug them. So big thanks to Davey. He's been really cranking out the stuff lately. He's been doing Dragon stuff and MC10 stuff. So he's giving Jim Gary a bit of a run for his money. And next up, the last story for today. So this is, I hope I'm not going to butcher his name here. Kamil Gorzaska.
Too late.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I screwed up right in the first one. So this is on the Dragon group on Facebook as well. And he wrote a Python wrapper to give a GUI to Rolf Mikkelson's Dragon DOS disk utility, which normally runs all command line. So it's kind of a wrapper to make it a lot easier to use. And you can go download that from his Google Drive. And once again, the show note, the link will be there for you if you want to grab it. But this will make it a lot easier to use to manipulate Dragon DOS disks. It also converts CoCo binaries to Dragon format, so you can actually transfer binaries over down the CoCo. And some programs will work without modification. Some will need some patching. Feel free to download it, he says here, but please read the README file before usage. So that's cool. We're seeing some more and more of these utilities getting a bit more user-friendly, either with front ends like this or just rewriting the utility itself. Because stuff like Image Tool from MAME and the DECB and OS9 utilities from the LW tools, I think it is. I've actually been having problems lately with the DECB utility. It's not even recognizing disks that work in every emulator I have and on real hardware. And it keeps returning weird errors, so I'm not sure what the hell's going on there.
Actually, it's the Toolshed project, not LW tools for the DECB and OS9 utility.
Okay, thank you for the correction. I just downloaded them both, and I've been using them both for so long, I don't remember what came from where.
Well, that's just because someone doesn't like to keep things accurate.
Why would I want to do that? That's boring. All right, that's the news for this week.
That's it.
Okay.
Time to wake up, everybody.
It's only 4:54. We've got like 2 more hours to go. Come on.
154 here.
Hey, Dave, what do you think about a 16-slot multi-pack? There, you're covered.
Okay, I'll see you guys later. See you next week.
Don't forget the usage of the grease weasel with flex dumps.
I want to see Dave do a 16-slot multi-pack, the Daniel O'Connor method, where you plug 4 regular multi-packs all into each other.
Sadly, that is not feasible.
I didn't think 2 was either, but it worked for her. So,
well, electrically they'll
pieces
work
off.
together, but the addressing doesn't. So,
Do you think this power supply would work? Or they all have one, don't they?
they all have one.
Yeah.
All right, that's all I got for this week. I don't think we have anything else to talk about unless anybody else has any last minute topic suggestions.
Okay, I just woke up. Did I miss the news?
Yes.
Yes.
You were in the
Oh yeah,
new-
Nick, you were going to show something, weren't you? You were talking about.
Yeah, I'll just see if I still got it here. I'll just
If it's
share my
Neutroid, we're not
desktop.
going to do it. But if it's anything else, sure.
Oh, okay. I don't have anything then.
Come on, Nick, pull it out. Let's get it going.
David, what are you saying?
This was Kieran's X-Raw. He's
Oh,
got
I
a new-
don't want to know that you're pulling it from him.
No. Kieran's next version of X-Raw. He's still in development, but he's got a test version that he showed me. It's running off the web in his web version of X-Raw at the moment. So I have a copy of it here, but it's running very slow. So don't ignore the speed. It'll be faster on the
It's a work in
one.
progress.
Yeah, but what he's doing is adding in PAL artifacting, color in P mode 3. So he's taken my original donut dilemma from 1986, which used PAL artifacting to get an additional 2 colors.
And that was
so
based on vertical position of dots, not horizontal. like
Yeah, it was
NTSC.
horizontal lines, basically, of alternating colors.
These donuts are now going to be chocolate covered.
No, no. So you get an extra red and blue. So X-Raw now does, or well, hopefully will now support that. So I'll just share my screen if okay, like so.
Now, from your talking to Karen, like obviously you use this technique for Donut Dilemma.
Yeah.
Was there a lot of Dragon games that use this technique as well? Like, is there a lot of PAL games
I don't know
designed
of
this way?
any other programs. I was only aware of my own.
Okay,
now-
Karen, if you can talk to that, because I think Karen had mentioned before there was some Dragon games that actually use this technique.
Yeah. I haven't seen or are aware of any others, but Karen might be able to work that out.
These
Now,
look like
the
cinnamon
emulator is
spice.
running very slowly in the online version of X-Raw, so he's still working on it. The final one will be a bit faster, of course. See the blue background? Yeah, so that's an extra. He's got 6 colors.
Yeah, because it almost looks like a purplish blue.
Yeah.
Well, that's the closest he's been able to do.
But you can still see the
It's all-
cyan, which is the light blue that was the actual built-in one,
Yeah,
still on the
it-
screen.
it-
So
The artifacting varied depending on your CRT. I mean, it could vary depending on the TV. It wasn't a perfect science. But even America, the NTS, see the red background.
Right, red and green and blue and yeah.
Well, the green is a cyan. Actually, it's the normal magenta, buff, cyan, and orange, plus that red and the blue that you saw on
yeah,
the
the
back.
bluish purple with your names in.
Yeah, it was bluish purple. Yeah, it varies. But that technique only worked on tube, PAL tube televisions. So the blurrier the TV, the better it was, of course.
That's
But
what I
that
always
doesn't-
wanted back then was worse
like
looking
a
screens than
CMA.
my standard RF channel 3.
That's right. Yeah. So the quality did vary. You know, I did remove that because it doesn't work on NTSC anyway. It looks well, you see the stripes, so it doesn't look very good. But Kieran's got it working on X-Raw because it emulates a CRT display. The X-Raw does now. I think he's got it in the renderer. You can actually, I'll just see if I can get that simple.
I mean, it looks too good though. It needs to be
Well-
fuzzy with lines.
That's it with it turned off. I can't.
Yeah,
remember
you
what I
see
had
you can
on
see the
screen.
horizontal stripes now.
Yeah, so I've turned off the thing. You can see the stripes. But when they're on a TV, they would blur. Now, wait till you see the title, which is red. That one sort of hides it fairly well. You can
Yeah,
roughly
you can see the
stripes.
donuts over the red, right?
Yeah, but yeah,
you can see
it-
the
it's just-
banding though on your name there for sure.
Yeah, that's it now simulating the CRT, so it smooths it out. but that's how it was released originally in 1986, where I was trying to get more colors out of the 4 colors from P Mode 4. And when Tandy picked up Donut Dilemma, that was just when the Coco 3 came out, they said, oh, we want a Coco 3 version. And of course, well, I had to get rid of all that striping and all that, and I did change it.
But Tandy. you did actually set custom palettes though, because then of course you didn't care because you could just set
on the Coco 3 you could just set custom palettes. It was sold on cassette in Tandy. One side had the original version for Coco 1 and 2 with PAL artifacting. The flip side had the slightly modified one for Coco 3. That's how it was sold in Tandy. But yeah, this is showing you the original PAL artifacting version and what it used to look like. And probably even better than what it used to look like because it's a little bit sharper.
Yeah.
It depends, and like I said, it depends on your TV. You know, some TVs gave a terrible reception even under the normal colors. But that was the best you could do, that I could do on the PAL artifacted colors. There we are. So that's the news.
Cool. I'm curious to see some of the Dragon games that Karen had mentioned that did use that technique too, because I've never seen them before.
So it'd be good if you can add some. I've told him he can add my Donut Dilemma to the online game software list that pops up on XRAW Online. So he can bundle that into so people can see the 6 colors. But anyway, it's Donut Dilemma. I'll try and turn off the share.
The game that Neutroid should have been. Oops, sorry. I promise I was.
And now we go on to Neutroid. No, I don't have anything to show.
Cool. Okay. No, I'm looking forward to trying that. Like I said, I know they've mentioned in the past there was some Dragon games that did use that same technique as you did with the vertical.
Yeah, I'd like to see it. Let's see if they got any more colors. I only picked those red and blue because they seem to work.
Yeah, they blended the best, I think, from what you told me before. The other ones were,
and they worked on most TVs.
Yeah,
some of them, maybe some other fancy combinations, didn't always work. So I didn't want to have something that might work and might not for some people. So I just went with red and blue. But it may be possible to get at least another 2 colors. Like NTSC artifacting, you can get the yellows and the
purples and greens and stuff.
Yeah, and that again depends on your TV or monitor
and the tint control.
Yeah. So it is variable.
Cool. Well, thanks, Nick, for showing us that, and thanks to Kieran, of course, for actually working on that, because I'm kind of curious to see some of those Dragon games now.
I think he's got some other things coming up as well in the new XRAW, but that was the one he showed me yesterday. So he wanted me to compare the PAL artifacted colors with the actual ones. That's it.
Cool. Well, I can't think of anything else, and there's no reason to just stretch the show out for no reason. So,
ready to stick a fork in it?
I think so.
Okay, fork it.
This concludes another episode of the CoCo Nation, the world's leading live interactive talk show featuring the Tandy Color Computer. For all things the CoCo Nation, visit us on the web at thecoconation.com. We'd love to hear from you. Send feedback, suggestions, even segments via email to show@thecoconation.com. The CoCo Nation Show would not exist without the community and its cast and crew. The CoCo Nation theme song, copyright 2022, D. Bruce Moore. Mixed, mastered, and produced by D. Bruce Moore. The CoCo Nation is over. Join us on the CoCo Discord server. CoCo forever.
Okay, that should do it for today.
Thank you for joining us, everyone. You have a good weekend, and we'll see you next week on the CoCo Nation Show.
Yeah. Oh, is that where we are?
Hello, I'm David Ladd, and welcome to the CoCo Nation Show.
Okay. Bye bye.
See you all next week.
Bye, everyone.